Welcome to the Out There channel, live stream 334, and we got Robert and Charles with us to present UFO cases. A couple of mistakes here. I knew I forgot to do the volume thing. The master speaker, I gotta always turn it off as I get echo. And the beepers CPU maxing out. I see the intro last time had a few corruptions because the CPU maxed out.
I noticed that when I saw it after.
Unlike Google, it doesn't do that though. It has better buffering by the looks of it. Google seems to have a better idea how to handle the streams. So if you have glitches and hardware takeouts, they buffer it as much as they can to keep the stream going while you sort out the technical problem.
It says we've got 3 watching now.
I think it's us 3. You notice my counter's not right though, so again we've got problems, so I'm going to have to restart by There's always a problem.
2.
Unless it's slow, I don't know. Like I said, the software for Twitch is not the best for the admin side of things. I'm even not sure if it's running or not. Hello. Good to be back. And you know the rules by now, people. Here it is coming up. And be civil, no hardcore swearing, no trolling. Most of the room is mods, so they'll deal with you anyway. So the CPU peaked there a wee bit. And looks like the stats are not working again. So I'm just gonna have to reset that, I guess, and see if it comes right. I think it's running. It says live here, but it hasn't given me the stats. Which means maybe it's not working. So it's gone to an I/O mode as well. Gone really slow. So this might be the usual thing each time now. Oh, they got some bad code there, I think.
Problems at the start of everyone.
Yeah. Not always, but this time it is. It gives people time to catch up anyway. There we go. Once we get some stats up, I'll be happy. I think it's something to do with cation, maybe. Oh, right, this is looking better. Taking ages though. Pause. Yeah, we have to do the side chat again. And we got 2 people. So he's gone to me anyway.
Yep. Yep, that's what it says at the bottom of my page.
Alright, the stats have updated at the bottom now as well. Yo, okay. We're just typing the welcome message. Come on. Let's see how well it goes. Welcome to the OT channel live stream 334. Rob's Sunday. So it must be early there now, daylight savings, is it for you guys?
Just 5:58 now.
Yeah.
It's pitch black.
What do you mean it's 5:58?
No, it's 9:58, 8:58 he means.
Well, 8:58, sorry.
Yeah, but it was actually dark at around
Yeah.
about 5:30 today, which isn't good, but there we go.
So you're an hour
That's
behind
5.
me now.
Yeah, half 5.
It was darker earlier than that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Honestly,
It
okay.
was about 10 to 5, quarter to 5 when it was pitch black here.
Oh Jesus, you further up north, though, aren't you? No, you're more down
No.
south than me.
Well, middle of the country, you're near enough.
Yeah, Midlands. Yeah. Okay.
What are we doing today, show? Here's a list Robert's given me. Where we get through it all, I don't know. But we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, just do what we can.
And can you explain to people now how to get the side chat before we actually go live? Because you two found
to be
the
honest,
hell.
well, yeah, to be honest, all I do is I open Twitch, go to the Out There channel, and from there, on your top left-hand side, you'll see a list of options, and one of them is chat.
Yeah.
So if you wait until just maybe a few minutes before the show, before you hit that, and then you'll see the screen there. So yeah, make sure that you haven't got it on full screen, or it won't enable the chat on the side, on the sidebar. So keep the screen minimized, and you should be able to see the chat
button.
the chat area. So it's not that difficult, to be honest.
Mm.
I
That's how I
just found it, guys.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to me, I just have it maximized and I find the chat. So, but you just have to scroll down and find the word chat, and then click on it, and then it comes up with the right live panel. Gives you a live panel of some sort. Mine's different to yours because I'm streaming to it. You're just receiving it.
Of course.
I said to you before, it's a learning process all the time for us.
We've got Susan joining us here, and I think it's just us. I'm not sure into JD, but he might be working because it is Monday here for New Zealand. So, where did we start from today, Rob? I'm thinking Charles because not yesterday.
Yeah, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Luis Elizondo of TTSA done a question and answer session. It was actually held on Twitter, of all places. And rather than go onto Twitter and try and capture it all, I found a nice little concise video here on YouTube that sums it all up very efficiently. So I'll leave that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, by the way, Charles, I'm Diomede.
Oh, it's you.
Yes, me.
Oh,
Yeah.
We said that last time, remember?
I know, we just forgot.
You know, I was joking about him being the I couldn't read it, and I was joking about it. Who the hell is Diomede?
I just made it.
You said you're going to change it.
Yeah, Diomede. It was Wellington's horse at the Battle of Waterloo. You bloody heathens!
No, we don't follow history, and history's out the door.
You said you're going to change it.
I was going to change it, so I went to change it, and he said, "Yeah," and he said, "I can't change it now for 2 months."
Yeah, I've seen that.
Bummer.
I know. I've seen you can't change it.
Hey, Diomede, bring us a beer.
Yeah.
You make a mistake. You're stuffed, aren't you?
So here we got this doing this project.
You got the link
Unity. Yeah, it seemed to come up nice and fast.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Project Unity. Twitter Q&A. So, is it loud enough to find out? Oh, it's got some music. So whereabouts do we need to go?
Only right at the start, Paul. Only right at the start.
Okay. How's the volume?
For technological study into various novel concepts through a variety of disciplines, all stemming from the observations recorded by ATIP of UAPs. Out of all of the members of To the Stars Academy, Lue has become the most active in engaging with the wider UFO community, and in this video I am going to read through some of the more interesting responses that we received from Lue on Twitter. The first question comes from Twitter user Warservant. You mentioned UAP patterns useful for investigating. With equipment ready and in place, are naval ships being used as bait? Let's call it coincident deployment. Lue Elizondo responds with, fantastic question, and unfortunately one I'm not at liberty to elaborate on at this time. But keep asking this question, it's a very important one. I think that's quite an interesting response from Lue. Although he doesn't say much, he does seem to be hinting towards the validity of the question that's being asked, and the idea that in some format, United States Navy carrier vessels or groups could be being used in some way to bait UFOs into their area. Next question comes from Twitter user The Weather Balloon. If the ATIP staff didn't have the required clearance on information that regarded the origin of the UAPs, why did Lue Elizondo mention the phenomena as being off-world? What's the criteria for labeling these objects as extraterrestrial? To which Lue Elizondo responds, ATIP had the required clearances regarding the origin. The issue was no one exactly knew
Maybe
the
we got to
answer.
pause it occasionally.
Let's not
mates.
confuse the term extraterrestrial with interdimensional, superterrestrial, or ultraterrestrial. Lots of other options than simply them aliens out there. So another interesting response, just kind of hinting towards the idea that this is actually a very expansive topic, and it may not be a simple explanation in regards to what the phenomena is. Next question comes from...
I'm just going to pause it between each of those boxes.
Sure, yeah.
If you want to,
yeah, okay, that's fine. But yeah, it's interesting that that's the conclusion that they came to. I mean, what they're saying basically, this isn't just like necessarily a black and white thing, as in like interplanetary travels. There's something that far more complicated. So these were some of the conclusions that TTSA came to. Now, hopefully, Louise, in time, he has suggested that sometime this year, a lot of the stuff that he knows will become unclassified or declassified, and then he can talk more openly about what was going on at ATIP. So he says it's in the process of happening, and he expects that to be done sometime towards the end of this year or the beginning of next. So yeah, it'll be interesting what he has to say then. Any thoughts from you guys?
No.
No.
Sounds straightforward.
I thought the only reason they thought it was extraterrestrials because no one's owned up to it, and nothing, as far as they know, can travel as fast as what they're claiming they saw with the pilot's eyes, as well as radar data, which we haven't got to see because the government won't release it, and maybe someone's deleted it and it's never going to be found again, but who knows.
That's not quite what he was saying there. What he was saying is that the phenomena is more esoteric than what we tend to believe it is.
So he's said, of course, after the elections.
After the elections, yeah. Well, that could actually be a factor. We don't know, do we?
After they
stopped office.
Yeah, stop going loony over Trump. Anyway, carry on.
User
yeah, a change in office may make a difference in the agenda.
Hi Lou, first a big thanks for your amazing work that you guys are doing. I was wondering if there are any more videos coming with good quality for the general public. Those grainy videos that you can hardly make out with a little white dot makes them just laugh. To which Lue Elizondo responds, videos are entertaining and make for great discussion, but it's only one part of the story. As much as people want more and better videos, I think that will happen only when the government has a plan to address the issue. The good news is that the conversation is happening. Next question comes from Twitter user Dominique Palmato, who asks, why hide retrieved craft from us, quotation marks, classified, seems to be a convenient excuse for another agenda. Lue Elizondo responds by saying, You are correct. Sometimes the classification system has been abused to hide the truth or minimize embarrassment. But in the case of UAPs, I think it may be even more complicated than that. Frustrating? Yes. Deliberate? Not necessarily. Next up we have Twitter user Brian Jones, who asks, what do you think the most logical and likely progression will look like in the advancement of awareness that will lead to disclosure? Can it somehow be outside of government? Speculative best guess is welcome. People want to hear it, brother. Lue Elizondo responds with, I think we are well on the path already. This topic is only becoming a successful campaign because the people demand it. It's the demand for truth that is driving otherwise risk-averse politicians and
That's what they watch
bureaucrats
us.
to have the conversation.
Nope.
In short, progression looks like this. Next up we have a question by Bojangles. He says, hey Lou, has your time at ATIP changed your opinion on existence after death? Lue Elizondo responds with, whoa, heavy question. Maybe. Let me think about that for a while. This requires a careful and thoughtful response, and I am not sure I am qualified to make it. After all, it's only my opinion. Now, that's a very interesting response because that seems to be in some way indicative that during his time in ATIP, he did learn things that have made him question or at least expand upon his ideas of life after death, or dare I say, consciousness and what that might mean ultimately. And so this is quite an interesting response from Lou, in my opinion. Next.
Just pause at the end. Do you want to add anything to that one?
Yeah, sure. That was an interesting response. I thought that's the kind of question he might ignore as nonsense, but
Who knows?
he did address it. But no, the main factor here, I think, is just what the hell were they looking at, and what exactly did ATIP study? Did it just go beyond, what they were? How can I say this? I don't really know.
I think that word current science.
I think that word esoteric comes up again. I think they were studying all kinds of things. I think all the cards were on the table, whatever this is, it's elusive, isn't it? Now, this thing, life after death thing, just what the hell they were studying for him to, I just don't know. That I think we'll just have to wait and see for that one. Now, that was a heavy question and a very difficult one to answer.
With my out of body transferring between bodies, from long distances, like you can manufacture a body far away and then transfer your consciousness to it, but like can Stargate universe series.
Well, were they looking at this kind of stuff? That's what I was suggesting. Have they been looking at stuff like that? It's quite possible.
Well, Webley Shriever did once say, if I remember right, that when he was in the UFO or something like that, and he could see his dead friends that he knew, and they said that life is forever, and the human body is just a shell, a capsule for the soul.
A vessel. Well, the thing is, consciousness is an energy source, and apparently an energy source can't either be created or destroyed, according to science. So, but it's heavy stuff. It really is.
Well, it kind of fits in with my universe model as well, really, in a way. But
it could crack you up actually. Looking too deep into that.
Everything's energy. We could transfer into the above dimension energy field when we die. Who knows? It would be good to think that we can live on and just take over a new shell and just carry on. But we don't remember our past lives unless you do the regression and believe in hypnosis and all that sort of stuff. So, but you never know.
A lot of people still believe that, though, do they? They don't believe that.
They don't believe.
Well, that sounds like being. Sounds like reincarnation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It does.
Well, I said not everybody believes it, though, do they? If
No.
somebody says you're, reincarnated from.
There had been some
Well,
very
no.
interesting cases with kids though on TV where they videoed the kid talking about this guy that died in war and his name is that and I'm him and all that sort of stuff, and they researched the history and actually found him to be a real person and all that sort of stuff. So I'm two minds about it. I'm split.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe some kids can remember the past lives and it gets switched off at some stage, or it fades away.
Yeah. Some of the best cases come from Asia, especially India.
They're a bit religious though. These are non-religious people, I believe, in America that have had the kids talk about past lives. But yeah, and of course, India, they got like sheiks that do tricks and fool people and try and get lots of money from them. So I don't really trust the Indians, unfortunately. But
Well, they're all heavy into religion, though.
Yeah. Plus, I don't like the way they burn their bodies and throw them in the water, and you see half dead bodies floating down the water, and everybody's drinking out of it and stuff. It's just disgusting, as far as I'm concerned.
Washing their clothes and washing the bodies.
Yeah. What do you think in India? What are you thinking? Religion shouldn't allow you to do that.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah. But listen, where reincarnation comes from is generally Buddhism, Paul. Now, Buddhism isn't exactly a religion as we kind of understand it in the Western world. Just let me finish here. Buddhists believe in a cycle of death and rebirth, and they call that samsara. And then through karma and eventual enlightenment, they hope to escape samsara and achieve what they call nirvana, which is an end to suffering. So it's kind of almost like a purgatory from the Catholic religion in a way.
Out of all the religions, I think it's the most peaceful and more logical one of all the religions out there, to tell the truth, to me anyway.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Paul. That's the whole thing. It's not a religion as we would call it.
No.
It doesn't necessarily believe in it.
Well, Islam's not a religion, it's a culture. It's a way of living. So that's how they think of it. Well, it is. Christians, a set of beliefs and rules that we believe in, like eye for eye and all that sort of business that they had in the Bible. And of course, modern society is built on the Christian belief in the Western world, and likewise the Eastern is built on their own sort of cultural religion system, right? But you see a lot of the Eastern stuff, technology comes from the West, cars and all that sort of business. We had a different start into science, I believe, and then they sort of caught up. No, they started off good with the maths. Apparently, the zero was invented by the Indians. Now, eventually, they said it was Islam that invented the number zero, but they found records now dating back to early trade, which come out of India. You probably could Google this up and actually read it online. So yeah, makes sense because they're like the central hub. So the east and west of trading and all that sort of stuff, and pass through India and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Why do you think there's so many?
Yeah.
Why do you think there's so many scammers coming from India on the phone? People.
Oh, that's something different completely. I think
there's more than one. There's more than one religion in India.
Yeah.
You got the Sikhs as well, haven't you? As well as Islam and Buddhism. So it's mixed.
So we're sort of bringing in. We're bringing in religion into the UFO field again, unfortunately, and really it needs to be kept separate. We need to keep science into it.
Course, but it wasn't us that asked that question, was it? It was that guy who was asking Lue. And
but you do see a lot of religious people in ufology, though, and they try and twist and turn it, demons and angels and all this stuff, and me, I've tried to
Yeah.
explain it with my universe diagram, how all that can fit together. Demons being actually entities from another universe, a multi-universe, and that ghost might not actually be our missing brothers or dead people, but might be just a glimpse breakthrough through a membrane from the other multi-universe that's identical to Earth, but in a slightly different time, and they may have died in our world, but living on in another world, and we just glimpse them walking through the house.
Maybe the planet evolved in a completely different way. You know, maybe in another world that was running parallel to ours, there's been a nuclear war 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Who knows?
Well, I think there's going to be
we
multiple.
all have crossroads in life, don't we?
Yeah.
And
But if you look at
road
my,
you take,
if you look at my universe theory,
yes, no,
which
Paul, we have. Yeah.
what's this one here, which is, maybe I should just copy it. 3, 2, 4. Oh, there's the one that got deleted. Is that still up on the list? That's the one that got nuked by Dr. J. Still got the thumbnail for it. Copy link. Let's see if it pastes anyway. Multiverse. A lot of people are starting to think that way now. The more you look into the UFO field. Anyway, we carry on with the next one.
Sure. Let's get off this.
Question is by Twitter user Music and Truth. They ask, so you mentioned the Phenomenon movie, and for many people, the aerial school kids were a highlight. Is there anything in your work you've learned that adds additional credibility or lends credence to what we saw there? Things maybe you can't be specific about. Lue responds with, children are often great sources of information because they have not been exposed to tradecraft or deceptive behavior techniques and countermeasures. As a result, what you see is what you get with kids. Body language and voice inflection are critical. I saw no signs of deception. So Lue Elizondo here is pretty much just confirming the fact that he believes the children are telling the truth and that they're not trying to deceive anyone, and that their body language is indicative of people who are telling the truth. Next up is Twitter user Jeff5647A, who asks, Lue, you recently told David Marseille that there's a lot more information to come, but that decision must be made mutually, not unilaterally. Any insight you can share on the parties that would be involved in that mutual decision? How can the public help? Thank you. Lue Elizondo responds by saying, progress requires all parties to move forward together, no different than an elephant walking and making sure his or her feet are coordinated. In this case, it's society, politics, media, scientific and academic communities, international organizations, brackets, UN, NATO, etc., close brackets. Next up is Anthony Kennedy, who asks, can you tell us more about the connection of the White Buffalo Calf Woman, the Lakota Nation, and its current relation to the Bledsoe events studied by multiple US government entities?
Bledsoe.
Lue Elizondo responds by saying, indigenous people have always had a close, spiritual connection to nature and our world. I would never presume to speak on behalf of indigenous people, but I hold a deep and profound respect for their approach. Next up, we have a question by Twitter user Mike Demante,
Where is everybody
who
today?
asks, Lue, do you think that the UAP UFO topic can get lost in shuffle in DC with the election, a possible constitutional crisis, and the pandemic, just to name a few big issues? Lue Elizondo responds by saying, we are already living in crazy times, brackets, COVID, terrorism, social anxiety, political strife, and questionable economy.
Did you get alerts when we started? Email?
And yet this topic still makes the front page news. I think once things settle down, expect an even greater interest. Next up, we have a question by Twitter user Vidius, who asks, Lue, you told David Marseille that you saw things in ATIP you were privy to, that there'd be no question what it is. Can you elaborate on this statement? What is it? Who knows the government has it? And how can Congress see it? Lue Elizondo responds, yes, indeed, I saw compelling data that demonstrably proves the reality of UAPs. I believe some in Congress have already seen this evidence for themselves, probably why they are taking it seriously. Next question comes from Twitter user Anomaly, who asks, is there any data or info that points towards a possible theory regarding what the UAP in the Nimitz incident were doing or trying to accomplish in the area? Lue Elizondo responds, yes, but not sure if it's nuclear related, brackets, i.e. nuclear propulsion, nuclear weapons, nuclear power generation, etc., or if it's good old-fashioned H2O that relates to the Tic Tac incident, or something entirely different we have yet to consider that is a possibility.
As if he's going to know that question, right? If we knew, we wouldn't be asking him in the first place, right? It would be already on the news.
Next, we have a question by Twitter user Stephen, who asks, do you think the UAPTF will be able to reveal more encounters in between the Nimitz and Roosevelt with videos or any encounters still happening to this day? For Ava's wingman, she said these encounters have never stopped. Thank you, Lou. Lue Elizondo responds with, she is correct, the encounters haven't stopped, but the role of the task force is to look at new incidents, not necessarily old ones. For this reason, I hope you will all get to see even more compelling cases with even better footage. Next question comes from Twitter user The Weather Balloon.
Yeah, do you want to
When
pause
does your
it there?
non-disclosure agreement expire? Do you...
Yeah, but the only thing is now, Suzanne Goff of the Pentagon has said that it's all going to be classified anyway. So I don't really know. That sounds like a kind of a contradiction there. Now, obviously, Lou's going to know stuff that I don't know, but he seems to be confident that some of this is going to be made publicly available. But that flies in the face of what Suzanne Goff, Pentagon spokesperson, said. Remember that article that I showed about a month ago now, where she clearly said it's all going to be classified and won't be available for public consumption, in other words. So I don't know. Lou seems to be confident there will be some of this information made public. I hope he's right. I do. I hope he's right. I'm not super optimistic, I have to be honest.
So as it's saying and doing and two different things.
Yeah.
They all say this, that, and the other, and they never do it.
There's a tug of war going on. There's no question about that. There's some people who want it out, and there's some people that just want to bury it. No question.
They don't want nobody to know, do they?
But I think your man pulling the strings on the inside is Christopher Mellon. I don't think anyone can achieve what I think he may achieve in the next few years. I don't think anyone else is in his position to do it. Yeah.
You still have to submit to polygraph tests? If so, how often? Lue Elizondo says, my NDA is lifetime, as those with clearances can attest. Only when information becomes unclassified can I talk about it. Yes, I am still subject to polygraphs and periodic reinvestigations. Next question comes from Twitter user Daniel Lusa Ribes, who asks, in addition to the Senate briefings, have there been briefings with scientists as well? Also, why not inviting, for example, Mr. Elon Musk and Mr. Jim Bridenstine to a big round table where they're exposed to all the evidence? Lue Elizondo responds by saying, I am working on a proposal now on this very idea. Next question comes from Twitter user Izov Mesmer. Lou, have you ever looked at the data from NIDS on Skinwalker Ranch? Did you ever see the data from the DoD on Skinwalker Ranch? Is the TTSA interested in high strangeness cases? Lue Elizondo responds with, I want to be careful here. I have always maintained a firewall between ATIP and ORSAP. Am I aware? Yes. Was it my entire focus? No. Next question comes from Twitter user Kyle, who asks, will 2021 surpass 2020 in terms of moving closer to disclosure? 2020 was a big year with the Davis memo going mainstream and the New York Times articles. Also, have any more compelling UAP witnesses come forward after Unidentified Season 2 aired? Lue responds with, it's always hard to make accurate predictions about the future, but if the past is any telltale, I think we are on a very good trajectory. Next question comes from Twitter user Audacity, who asks, Hi Lue, many thanks for doing another Q&A. Just curious to know if it is the information that you have learned about the phenomenon that is classified, or is it how you obtained that information that is classified, or both? Lue Elizondo responds with, information is classified to protect sources and methods, meaning what, how, where, and who can all be classified. In short, both aspects can be classified, but mostly it's the how aspect that remains most sensitive. Next question is by Twitter user
do you want to pause it there, Paul, please?
1129.
Do you know in the last question there, the Davis memo was quoted? Yeah? You know what that's about, guys? No?
No, I haven't.
It's the Wilson leak.
I was just
Wilson
trying to figure out
Davis.
the name. I couldn't think of
Edric
it because
Davis.
it's already been
Edric
erased
Davis
out of my
he was
memory.
talking about.
Yeah.
So he's talking about that like it was fact. Oh, you can't forget things like that. Jesus, Paul, you've got to have them. They should actually be.
Any
They should be
forward shit like
embedded.
that.
Should be embedded in your brain. Yeah, Wilson Davis memo.
The only thing I got embedded as Wilson as movie script.
No, well, that was John Greenwald suggested that. It was only speculation, but it made sense. Yeah, go on, roll it on anyway, Paul.
Who asks, the US
There's a lot of
Congress
questions
is
here.
now interested in this issue. Do you know if other countries are preparing to study it at a political level publicly, or if this question could interest the United Nations soon? Lue responds with, simply put, yes. Take the recent effort with Japan as an example. We are making great progress. And for those that aren't aware, I believe Japan has made its own guidelines similar to the Navy guidelines by the US government in regards to reporting UAPs to a proper channel of reporting and making it more official than it was in the past. Next question is by Twitter user Torbjorn Lungfist. Mr. Elizondo, thank you so much for doing this Q&A. In an interview, you alluded to the book Chains of the Sea, providing a new perspective of the phenomena. Could you please elaborate a bit, since the UAP-C connection seems rather obvious at this point? Lue Elizondo responds with, Chains of the Sea has little to do with the sea and more to do with the possibility of an ultra-terrestrial universe. My recommendation for the book, second of the third short stories, is the way in which the story, fiction, is told. Forces the reader to consider other possibilities about the nature of the phenomenon. Next question is by Twitter user Akam1129, who asks, some senators and congressmen have been briefed. What were the criteria for this selection and the steps to come into this process? Lue Elizondo responds with, committees. It's all about the committees. We prefer to spend our time and attention addressing those which are relevant to our national security. Congress is divided and focused on many different issues. As such, some areas are less relevant than others as they relate to the phenomenon. Next question is by Twitter user The Undead Gaucho, who asks, is it possible that the phenomenon itself does not want disclosure? Why is it that whatever is behind this technology has not deduced a way to make open, transparent contact with our species? This is absolutely possible, but it might not be for the reasons some people think. We must remain open-minded. As my dad used to say, careful jumping into the sea when you see fins in the water. Maybe we are the sharks. Next question comes from Twitter user Jamie Higgs, who asks, do you have any plans in TTSA in partnering with other international UAP agencies, South America's CEFA for example? Lue Elizondo responds with, we are always looking for new opportunities to partner with other organizations with similar goals. Our trips to Europe and South America have served as wonderful catalysts. We are working diligently behind the scenes and hopefully be made public in a not too distant future. Next question comes from Twitter user John Mazurowski, who asks, say full-out worldwide disclosure happens tomorrow, what happens to TTSA? Will the objectives and missions stay the same or evolve? Lue responds, I believe we must always adjust, adapt, and evolve with the times. Mother Nature shares insights, and we must include it in our future calculations. Next question comes from Benedict Orn Halterson, who asks, you mentioned recently that you were looking forward to people you worked with in the Pentagon to come out of the shadows. Can we expect others to become more vocal in the public like you guys are? That would be a powerful way of keeping the momentum going. Lue responds, that depends on how much crap they get if/when they come out. They've seen the ways I and others have been treated so far, and in some cases it's prevented others from coming forward. Some in the press and blogs haven't been kind to guys like me. Hopefully that is beginning to change. Next question comes from Twitter user Izov Mesmer. I fully respect all the brave work you do and the high caliber of you and your team. Do you think it is possible for members of high-ranking officials and intelligence agents involved in UAP/UFOs to become compromised? Lue responds, yes, as human beings we are all susceptible to compromise, both in our private lives and our professional ones, whether it's family, money, status, or other influences. The key is to destigmatize this topic where some of those barriers are removed. Thank you for watching this Luis Elizondo UAP.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, so destigmatize the topic. Well, I think that's already been done to a large degree now. That's one thing they can confidently say that we've made some progress on. I mean, it was only, go back to the middle of 2017, it was far more taboo just then than what it's become today. So in that respect, it was certainly going in the right direction. So anyway, I answered those questions as best as he could, but you could see he was being quite cagey with some of them, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
They're never going to fully answer our questions.
No, yeah, there was they were partial answers, weren't they, Chell?
Yeah. You'll get detected all with a bit of skepticism, I think.
Yeah, he'd have made a good politician, but of course he had time to answer those questions as well, and choose very carefully what he was going to say. I'm terrified of making a slip up, because if he does, it's going to be all over, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be all over the world in no time at all, isn't it? Whatever it is.
Yeah, that's why he's so cagey. It's understandable. And he's got a cleavance as well. And I know he claims at least that he's no longer part of the intelligence community, but he still has that cleavance. Now, if he ever wants to go back into the intelligence community and start work again, he's going to need that cleavance, because it's going to get him a much better job than if he didn't have one. It takes a long time to get a cleavance, and a lot of background checks need to be done,
Yeah.
So you can understand him wanting to hang on to that if you possibly can.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So,
see, a lot of people think that they talk about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. He hasn't got an NDA. That's just a blanket term that people use. What he has is a clearance, which would be top secret or top secret code word.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess we're finished here.
Yeah, we're done with that one.
Was that there was a lot of questions there?
Yeah, there's some good questions as well. One or two of them were a little bit silly, but that's okay.
Chinese embassy, next topic.
Yeah, have you got it? No, of course you haven't got it.
I got the list here.
Of course you haven't got it. You just got the list. Oh, all righty. This is from that
Greer
Stephen Greer thing. Eh? Yeah.
Yep.
Gordon Creighton, he's from the UK. Very interesting man. I'll leave a link there for you. You can just skip the first 30 seconds while he's... Oh, I don't know. They think they play that silly background music all the way through the interview, do they? I'm not sure now.
Yeah, a lot of people do
Just
that.
there's just no flaming need for it. Really isn't.
At least we don't have to worry about that studio bit being added on with this side chat. You noticed that?
Oh, there you go. God, everything has a silver lining, I suppose, doesn't it? You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure the volume's right as well.
Okay.
I'll just skip it a wee bit. So still trying to sell the DVD, obviously.
It's all available on YouTube for nothing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Of Defence as an intelligence officer.
Yeah, some people like to support it, and I think that volume is a bit low, isn't it? Yeah, once I use this thing, though, it tends to peak up the CPU a bit. It was nice and even, about 80% before. But we'll see how
Sounded
we go.
okay to me, Paul. Just put it up a touch.
I thought it was a bit low.
Yeah.
Specialising in Russian and Chinese matters.
Right.
But then, you see, for nearly 10 years,
Yeah, not too sure
I
why.
found myself.
Whenever you use that add-on, obviously it adds an overhead. Let me just minimize that. And I'll just go back a bit again.
By the Reds. Really? I resigned from the Foreign Service. And I then went to the Ministry of Defence as an intelligence officer, specialising in Russian and Chinese matters, you see. But then, you see, for nearly 10 years, I found myself working in a top secret department on the next floor, underneath this floor, where the Royal Air Force was studying UFOs. So at a very early date, I got confirmation that UFOs existed. And although I wasn't involved in their work, I was in the same building with them.
Yeah, not too sure why. Doesn't like that add-on on Microsoft Edge so much.
In the British Foreign Service, I was in the Far Eastern Department, so I became a China specialist. And
I don't know why.
I had already done Russian at Cambridge, so in the end I had these two languages, which of course I used a great deal in this work, and I spent 10 years in China. And it was there in 1941, when I was back again there with the embassy, as it was now an embassy, and I had this sighting of what we call a UFO. Of course, I didn't say there goes a flying saucer or there goes a UFO, but
Hello,
this
JD.
was 6 years, of course, before Kenneth Arnold. Look, it was whitish disc, totally silent apparently, flying extremely fast, and it had a bluish light on top, on the apex. It was that bluish colour that you get in arc welding, and that was coming on rhythmically, so that as it went across the sky, you could say it's coming on there, got to come on there, got to come on there, got to come on there. And that was flying from the northeast, that would be from Manchuria way, to more or less towards Burma, towards the southwest. Well, I never forgot that. I sort of put it in the back burner. I thought,
can I go back? Was this daytime or nighttime?
Oh, daytime, midday. And it was not high, it was flying underneath the clouds, totally silent. It certainly was very fast, because it was much faster than the famous Japanese fighter, the Zero, which we were already seeing at that time. Chinese communists took over. I didn't feel happy about the British policy and recognise them in any way. USA didn't, but we did, and I think it was a mistake. And I also felt very strongly that USA should have backed Chiang Kai-shek anyway. You wouldn't have had a Vietnam War or a Korean War. But that's all.
Remember to make comment every couple of minutes, guys.
So I resigned from the service, and I then went to the Ministry of Defence in Whitehall, which was quite close to the Foreign Office, of course, and as an intelligence officer, in view of my knowledge of Russian and Chinese. And I was working, therefore, on intelligence matters to do with those two countries. And therefore, in no way was it connected with the UFO problem. But the fact was that physically I was on the next floor. underneath this department, which we knew was dealing with UFOs. So A, I had seen something
Yeah,
in
do you want to
China,
pause there
and
then,
B,
Bob?
I was now underneath this.
Yeah, so the Americans had a department in China that was actually studying UFOs. Or the Air Force was studying UFOs. It's a strange one, isn't it? But we found that to be the case in Germany as well, didn't we? A couple of episodes back, or was it last episode? I can't remember now. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, and this would have been back in the 50s
Yeah.
when he had his sighting. The very educated man. I think he learned 15, 16 languages. Well, obviously, he could speak Chinese and Russian. He can speak just about anything, I think. He went down the same road as kind of Jacques Vallée with his opinions on UFOs, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anybody that's looked even a little bit towards Valley's work understands where he's coming from, you know.
Yeah.
He comes
Do you
from.
think the Americans went over there could be more secret than being in America? People wouldn't be asking so many questions in America. What's going on?
No, I think they were studying the phenomena in all the countries that they were involved with, you know.
Yeah.
The more sightings they could gather, then, you know,
More information.
yeah, and more enable them to come to some kind of conclusion. And I mean, phenomena. You heard Robert Fenn speak. He was quite elderly at the time. The guy lived till I think he was 99 or 97, something like that. But before he died, he gave away just a little bit. And what he said in phenomena was the reason we closed Blue Book is because we'd already come to a conclusion. We knew what it was. That's what he was suggesting. He didn't say it quite that blatantly, but that's what he was suggesting. So yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We're still not seeing that.
This department, which was said to be dealing with the same subject. So I already felt very certain.
What year would that have been?
This would be 53.
And what do you know what this division was called?
You mean the what my division was called?
No, the division dealing with the UFO problem.
I think it was air technical. But having, of course, seen something, and having, while I was in the States, seen the newspaper accounts, heavily censored, by the way, about the Foo Fighters, or Kraut balls, as the American pilots call them, I was already quite sure. You see, I wasn't one who believed that UFOs might exist. I was satisfied they exist. I've met Germans who've seen them, of course, German pilots. I've talked to RAF people who certainly saw them. Probably small, small devices of probably the Foo Fighter type. Described to me always as small, globular, either silvery or golden or fiery, perhaps a foot or two wide. I imagine they were telemetry devices of some sort. I understand that a very interesting thing happened in Germany. After the war, when the Allies were occupying Germany, one of our bombers was flying over Germany, very low, of course. It was not the pressurized height, flying very low with the waist hatch open. And apparently one of these things came in and flew up and down inside because the whole crew of 8 or so saw it.
Foo Fighter.
And it then flew out again. And so it probably took a total reading of every man there, you know, a picture of him, and took even his blood pressure and his state of mental development, if any, and spiritual development, the whole lot probably. And out it went. And you know that in Brazil, where I was some years later, one crashed at a place called Ubatuba, and the bits were salvaged, and I think they ended up with the Americans in the end. And I believe it was found to be very largely, what's the stuff about magnesium?
Magnesium.
Largely the content. In other words, it was something expendable. He was starting to collect names, you know, already for subscriptions. And 2 of the first requests we got were from the Duke of Edinburgh and from his uncle, Earl Mountbatten. Now, the interesting thing there is that in that same year, 54, this proves the interest that the Duke had in the subject. It was announced in the press that he had requested the British Ministry of Defence to give him a copy of every UFO report they had. So that shows his interest at a very early date. Yes. Naturally, the magazine went to him from then on, to the Duke, and is still going to him. In fact, I also sent it to Prince Charles. And, of course, it went to the uncle, Lord Mountbatten, until he was assassinated. She was in London, and she was reporting back, and she said that I and my husband were at a cocktail party last night, and we met a man whose name is known to every American, a man of cabinet rank, who told us the story about the crash of a craft with small occupants. But I interpreted that as being a British crash. I didn't know that was Roswell. But the interesting thing is that we do know that on the estate of Lord Mountbatten, which is in the south of England, down near Southampton, the estate is called Broadlands, that in the early 60s, I think it was the very early 60s, we published the story, the whole story. In the early 60s, he had a man working on the estates, as a groundsman, I think, or working outside anyway. And this chap apparently one morning, it was winter time, there was snow on the ground, and he was coming in, and he apparently saw a UFO hovering, and I believe I'm right in saying he saw it land. And he was pretty shaken when he came into the house. So they took this man, whose name was Bridges, who had been in the British Army in the war. They took Bridges in to see Mountbatten. And Mountbatten asked him to tell his story, and pulled out a drawer and got a lot of different types of UFO photos out. And showed it, he said, was it this one? Was it this type? And apparently Bridges indicated that one which was model, or more or less like it. And then they got the girl, the secretary, to come in, and Bridges made his statement. They took 6 copies of it. Bridges signed them all, and they gave him a copy to keep. And the Mountbatten put the other 5 in the drawer, and that was that. Well, we got the story. I think we got it from Desmond Leslie. But anyhow, we published it at the time. So you see, there had been a landing on the estate of Mountbatten, and there was Mountbatten's great interest. And of course, one of my closest friends was Hynek. And when Hynek came over here the first time,
Mountbatten had a deep interest in UFOs. Lord Mountbatten, he was the envoy for India during the Indian occupation.
Mm.
And he was assassinated by the IRA, wasn't he? I think it was in the 70s when he was on his boat. That's fitting explosives to the engines. Anyway, that's kind of off subject. But I believe Mountbatten, towards the end, he was determined to get to the bottom of the UFO issue, and he never quite did, and he kind of gave up in disgust. That's how I think it ended, as he thought he knew so many people he could find out 100%, but even he didn't know all the relevant people.
So I was just wondering whether he'd have whether he'd be able to get all the classified information anyway.
Yeah.
Whether he'd get the clearance for it.
Well, look at Norton Hill. He was head of the Department of Defence for the UK, and he couldn't get all of the answers. He tried damn hard.
Yeah.
And he did find a lot of witnesses and persuaded a lot of witnesses to go on the record, but he couldn't find out one way or the other in the end.
There's a lot of people in a lot of these countries way above all these presidents and prime ministers in these countries, isn't there? They're there permanently doing these jobs, and they know everything. They're not letting anybody know, are they?
Exactly, Charles. When you think about it, if you take a career in intelligence, you're probably there for life.
Yeah.
A president's only going to be 2 terms at most. What's that, 8 years?
Yeah.
So no, they're not going to trust him with every damn thing, are they? Plus, he may have no interest. He's got enough on his mind. So no, my personal opinion is I don't think the president's no jack shit really. Probably there's been a couple who have. I think definitely Bush Senior would have known a lot because remember he was head of the CIA. He was director of the CIA for several years before he was president, and apparently he was asked by someone about is there a reality to this UFO thing, and he just came out with a one-line answer. His reply was, "You don't know the heart of it."
And Reagan.
Reagan was another one. Yeah. Carter was another one who was very interested, and he was, if I get in, there'll be disclosure. When he got in, he never mentioned it again. But his secretary actually said that he had a 1-hour briefing on UFOs, and that he was really looking forward to. He's so excited. He met these people for an hour or so, and then they left. The secretary went back into the room, and Carter was out of his hands in his head, sobbing.
Yeah,
after and never said a word about UFOs again. While he was
I don't think they would tell Trump. They told maybe certain presidents gave him a briefing, but
no, they're not going to tell him. He's got a big mouth.
They're not going to tell Trump because he's more likely to tell everybody because he probably will think everyone should know this, and that's why they want to get rid of him because they know he's already said stuff about top secret weapons and stuff.
Yes, he has. Yeah, yes. Well, John Greenwald said that in an article I read this week that he blurted out something about still classified technology, and it was weaponry. Yes, Paul.
Yeah. Hypersonic missiles. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I just need to pop to the get a refill actually.
Okay,
sorry.
Okay, D-Made.
Okay.
I went on behalf of our group.
The beer maid.
And took him out to lunch. And he told me a very interesting thing, and this ought to go on the record, I think. He told me that up till then, the US authorities had not been showing him any of the cases that were coming in from CIA overseas or from embassies or consuls. It was desperately important, as we see from Corso's book, it was desperately important that the Soviets shouldn't know what the Americans found out. Of course, we now know, by the way, that Stalin was quicker off the mark than the Americans were, because you probably know the story of this. Stalin became aware of it at a very early date, in 1947, after the story after Kenneth Arnold. And Stalin was collecting reports from all over the place, and one day he called in the top, a young astronomer that you remember named Korolev, and showed him all these reports. And Stalin said to him, "Sit down there and look at that. What do you think about it?" And apparently Korolev said, "Well, can I take it home and look at it?" And Stalin said, "No."
It's a wee bit hard to understand, I find. And the accent, or I don't know, it's sort of not.
I can understand him.
He's not speaking clear for me, really.
It is for us. With more English.
Yeah, that's why we've got subtitles on for people that are having trouble. But yeah, if you hear the men in black snoring, make sure to wake them up.
I know.
I tell you what, I'm super tired. Anyway, carry on.
Oh, you're going to sit here in the Kremlin. You're going to stay here until I get your answer. So apparently he gave him the answer. He said, "Yes, it's not of this world. It's not of this earth. It's not terrestrial." And then Stalin apparently wanted him to take over control of it, you remember. And Korolev said, "Well, if you don't mind, I'm an astronomer and a mathematician. I don't really want to do that." And of course, he went on to be the head of the whole Soviet rocket program. Had a very tremendous career. But obviously, from the American point of view, it was desperately important that they should keep it top secret. Well, I'm sure you could say that the time for ending the secrecy arrived certainly when the Soviet Empire dissolved, because there wasn't that danger any longer. Very little is leaked out over here, a lot less is leaked out here than over on your side. They really have to keep the lid on it well here. But I've always had the impression that the Americans were giving them here very little information. And that's not surprising, because there's more knowledge about the subject over on that side than anywhere. And I'm quite certain, of course, that if ever we do get a breakthrough and we solve this problem, it will be done in the States. And that, as Hynek said to me several times when we discussed, I remember asking him, what do you think caused this? Assuming that they've always been there, but what caused this great interest in us, this large incursion after 47? And I remember he thought for a moment, he said, well, obviously, the atom bomb.
Yeah.
If you accept the multidimensional theory, it's highly likely that we've done a hell of a lot of damage. In somebody else's world, they might have even done more damage there than we did here.
That's what I said.
Good
and
point,
if you
isn't
keep
it?
the beehive, you shouldn't be surprised if the bees
Funny
come out
how I
and
come up with that
look at you.
conclusion myself
If you've heard,
without
they might
even
even
hearing that.
disfigure. And so my answer is, I think it's an enormously complicated problem. If he carries on as he is, he's like a child playing with a bit of chunk of dynamite and a hammer. He's going to destroy himself. Man could have survived forever with bows and arrows. He's not going to coexist forever with his present technology. One or the other is going. I am certain that measures have been taken by agencies to terminate people who appear to be inconvenient or troublesome through knowing too much. I suspect that it has happened with at least one editor of Flying Saucer Review. I suspect that it happened with a man with M.K. Jessup in the States. I'm very puzzled about James MacDonald. I cannot understand why that man who had a perfectly happy life, apparently, a happy family, cannot understand that he should have attempted as he did to kill himself as he did and to finally do it so terribly. Kennedy may have been engaged in a bit of a struggle with the CIA in attempting to get more information on the UFO subject, and that ostensibly, the story goes, that he might have been thinking regarding the UFO subject is so serious that he ought to take it up with the Russians. Now, if he was thinking of taking it up with the Russians, they may have thought this was a premature and very dangerous thing to do, and that might account for his termination. I wonder. I think certainly there have been crash craft. I'm sure the American authorities have got
Paul?
Corpses preserved, quite a number.
Jeez, he was saying some pretty heavy stuff there, wasn't he? Now, he said that editor of Flying Saucer Review, he kind of hinted that he was bumped off. Now, I don't know who he is, to be honest, but then he mentioned a guy called Jessup. Well, Morris Ketchup Jessup, an unusual name. He apparently committed suicide. Now, and do you know why they think he was killed? If it wasn't just suicide, it's because of oh good God, man, what was it called again? Now that project where they made a ship disappear. Somebody help me.
Philadelphia.
Come on, it was the Philadelphia experiment. Thank you, Paul. You saved me there. Yeah, it was based on Einstein's field theory, wasn't it? But he actually had a meeting with the top brass at the Navy about his opinions, and he started to get paranoid. The way he committed suicide was really odd. He left home to visit a friend, but he never got there. Halfway there, he obviously pulled into like a park area, and he put a pipe in his exhaust, and he committed suicide that way. which there was a lot of strange circumstances about that death. Then he talked about James McDonald and his suicide, but what he didn't realise at the time, that McDonald's grants had been pulled because he was looking too much into the UFO subject, and the ridicule factor kind of got to him. So he was in quite a bad place even. And another thing with McDonald, his wife was actually seeing somebody else at the time. So there was a lot of factors going on now with McDonald. I don't think that was, but I don't know. There's always going to be an element of suspicion there. Then he talked about Kennedy knew too much about UFOs. Well, there was multiple reasons why Kennedy had to go. So, I don't know. It's speculation, isn't it?
Yep.
Well, he sounds very believable.
Oh, he certainly does. Yeah.
He seems to know what he's talking about.
He's in a much better place than what we are to be making those comments. Yes. Yeah. He knew a lot.
If I was sat there in front of him and he was talking to me, I believe every word he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you got to be careful. Remember, there are a few ones that got caught out. Bushman was one of them with the alien doll from Kmart.
Oh yeah, but this guy's never claimed anything like that, Paul.
No. But still, there could be liars or disinformation agents out there.
Yeah, but
yes. Or he could just be mistaken, and I think maybe some of what he says is.
Well, I think everything that's coming across from him sounds believable. And
absolutely.
I think what he's saying as if he believes everything he's saying.
Oh, he was certainly never exposed as a Star Charles. No, never. Highly respected man.
Yeah. And intelligent, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect that some other countries have too, possibly the Russians.
There was definitely a large...
Okay.
I stopped it for a few words.
That was a good interview, wasn't it? I thought so.
That was very good.
Yeah, he's because he came from the intelligence community, he travelled all over the world. He had some good insights.
Yeah.
Where is everybody today? We should be going up 3, 5, 3, 5.
Yeah. Are you eating, Paul?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Okay, I thought so. I thought the sound had gone a bit dodgy. God, I'm really hoping my internet connection stays up. It's been intermittent all week.
We got Twitter's gone down.
Hmm?
So there's the network error. Please try again.
Oh, I'm not getting that.
On my screen, it's just gone black.
Oh, sugar.
Jitsi or what?
No, the Twitch.
Can you still see the side chat?
Yeah.
Oh, you'd be okay then. You don't
side
need...
chat's still working, but there's a black screen in the middle. I'll just keep watching it on the other one.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird though.
Looks alright on mine.
It might come back on, I don't know, but it's all black on mine. Apart from all the chat. It still says live.
Okay.
What have we got over here? Susan's okay. Is that the next link to go?
Yeah. This is a strange tale.
Let's see. Start a new tab, maybe. Where's that one?
1952, I think.
I'll just do a reset before I start. Gone slow as up.
I've just started up again. It's back on.
Yeah.
It's on another tab. I don't know what's going on.
Yep. Okay, from the top, is it? The Scoutmaster. Haven't we done this one before?
Do you know what? Actually, yeah. When I was looking at this case, I was kind of thinking, have I done this before? But it doesn't matter. It's a good case. Well, I was going to get to repeat the odd one.
The time a Scoutmaster was attacked by a UFO. Brent Swanser, February 20th, 2020. Facebook. Twitter. Google+. It was a hot and humid evening on August 19th, 1952, and hardware store clerk and Boy Scout Scoutmaster Dunham Sanborn Sonny Desvergers was driving a group of Boy Scouts home on a coastal highway near West Palm Beach, Florida, that winds right alongside the vast swamp wilderness of the South Florida Everglades. As he made his way down a darkened side road towards the home of one of the boys, his attention was captured by a bright flash in the sky out over the gloomy swamp near a dense grove of palmettos. His first thought was to just keep on driving, but then it occurred to him that an airplane had possibly gone down out there in the wilderness, so he turned back, stopped the car, and after some moments of thought peering into the dimness of the swamp, he decided to grab a machete and start hacking his way through towards where he believed the accident to have occurred. And so would begin a strange odyssey that has remained one of the weirder UFO encounters on the books. Desvergers told the Boy Scouts to stay behind, and if they did not hear from him in 15 minutes, they were to make their way to a farmhouse off the road and fetch help. He then gripped his machete, hoisted his flashlight, and began penetrating the murky, snake and alligator-infested wilderness. As he progressed through the choking brush, he allegedly noticed an unpleasant smell in the air, which got steadily worse as he progressed. He continued hacking his way through the vegetation and thickets through the fog of stench that pervaded the air, until he reportedly came to a clearing, where he signaled to the boys with his flashlight, and then turned to notice what he would describe as an intense heat, as if an enormous oven door had suddenly opened to belch forth its fire. Disoriented, he looked up to see something blocking out the sky above, which he claimed was a large disc-like object measuring around 30 feet in diameter, and ringed with glowing lights, and when the beam of his flashlight hit it, he could ascertain that it was smooth, metallic, and had a concave bottom. This is where things would get really weird. As the frightened Scoutmaster started backing up in a growing panic, he claims that he heard a grinding sound like metal upon metal, which he soon realized was a hatch of some sort opening on the side of the unearthly craft. From within emerged what he describes as an intense red light that approached him, and then transformed into a red mist, which engulfed him and caused him to instinctively cover his face. According to him, he then lost consciousness. Back at the car, the Boy Scouts, who had been tracking their Scoutmaster's progress by watching the glow of his bouncing flashlight beam in the gloom, purportedly saw a big red ball of fire through the trees, as well as a series of red lights, a lot like flares. That was when they decided to go for help. Police arrived on the scene not long after, and were about to launch a search through the swamp for Desvergers when he came stumbling out of the thicket in a kind of daze, disoriented, mumbling incoherently and quite obviously very shaken, to the point that Deputy Sheriff Mott Parton would later say, "In all my 19 years of law enforcement work, I've never seen anyone as terrified as he was." Closer inspection of the man showed that his skin seemed lightly burned and the hair on his forearms singed, as well as a strange series of 3 burn marks in his Scoutmaster's cap. Making it all even odder still was that when some of the officers went to the clearing that Desvergers had come from, they found his flashlight lying on the ground and a flattened ring of grass they could not explain. Desvergers would be brought back to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and that was when the case would attract the attention of Captain Edward J. Ruppelt, who was at the time part of the U.S. Air Force Project Blue Book, which was with investigating and analyzing UFO-related incidents in the name of national security. Ruppelt, who would later call it one of the weirdest UFO reports that I came up against, took his team to Florida in order to interview the witnesses and investigate the area of the alleged UFO encounter.
after this.
Talking to the Boy Scouts, he learned that they stood by their story of seeing bright red lights, and Desvergers also seemed very sincere, which impressed Ruppelt at first, and of which he said he had the immediate impression he was telling the truth. The team also were able to find anomalous singed grass in the clearing where it had all gone down, which lab tests were unable to find an answer for, especially since in many instances the samples showed burned roots, but intact upper leaves. Nor was there any conventional medical explanation for the victim's singed hair, slightly burned skin, which was determined to have been caused by a flash heat source, or his damaged cap, thought to have been the work of sparks of some kind, all of which made it all even more promising, but cracks would slowly start to reveal themselves.
Yeah, Blue Book investigated this case quite well. While Ruppelt was there from approximately 1952 to 1954, Blue Book, with its limited resources, was actually quite effective. But that was the only little period in the time which they were. But yeah, they looked into this quite well, but we'll see now that this guy, De Serres, had a little bit of a dodgy reputation. But it's hard to know how he could have possibly faked this. The kid's seen it. It left trace evidence. That he had physical. He was left with slight burns, wasn't he?
Scorched.
There was some damage. There was some damage to his clothing as well. If he's pulled a stunt here, I'm not convinced how he's done it. Then we roll it on because we'll find out a little bit more about this guy's background now.
Themselves. Red flags started going up when Desvergers began drumming up media attention for his alleged encounter, even going so far as to hire a press agent, and the story got more and more exaggerated the more he told it, adding in details such as that he had seen alien beings, and even fought with them. A little digging into Desvergers' past also brought up some warning signs, as he was found to be an insufferable teller of tall tales, and as well as having gone AWOL during military service, and also a convicted car thief. In other words, honesty was not really his thing, and although dishonest people can still potentially have a strange UFO encounter, Ruppelt was starting to get suspicious. Although there were certainly many oddities that could not easily be explained, and he couldn't see how they could have been faked, Ruppelt would nevertheless eventually label it the best hoax in UFO history. He would go on to write of the account in his 1956 book The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. And as much as he liked to think of it as a hoax, some of the aspects have never been satisfactorily explained, such as the weirdly singed grass roots and physical evidence, and so the debate has remained open as to whether it really happened or not, with one researcher Jeffrey Wilson saying, "Something unusual happened to the guy, and the physical evidence backed him up. That's why I put the effort into checking this out. Why would you go to the trouble of faking something like this? Why and how would he stage that? It doesn't make any sense."
Money.
The case is still quite remarkable for the physical evidence left behind, and the assertion by the witness, even in later years in the face of withering criticism, that this was all real. Regardless of whether Desvergers was a known liar or not, there seems to be a lot to unpack here, and it is important to remember that strange phenomena do not always necessarily happen to the most honest or reliable of people. What are we to make of his burns or the scorched grass, or the corroborating reports of the Boy Scouts he was with at the time? Was this perhaps a real event that he merely embellished and took advantage of over time, or was it merely the rantings and scheming of a known liar? The case was certainly enough to catch the attention of Project Blue Book and other researchers since, still unexplained, and whether it is real or not has managed to lodge itself firmly within some of the more curious and puzzling UFO cases there are. Tags Bizarre Modern Mysteries Mysterious
There we go. Yeah. So what do you think then, Paul? And what do you think, Charles, one at a time?
Well, I don't think
I'd give it a 1.
Whoa.
You asked me first, I thought, but anyway.
Okay, yes, I did. You first, Paul, but you've got to tell me why you're giving it a 1. That's no good. You can't just do that. That's not fair.
I think
That's
he
cheating.
fabricated the scene of the ring and left his torch in the middle, and I think he was trying to make a story. What year was this one again? What was the
1952.
year? 52. Probably. Did he have any financial debt, gambling debt, or anything like that? Did anyone look into his background?
No. He wasn't in debt. No.
Yeah.
Maybe he just wanted to make a bit of money.
Yeah. There was no radiation, was there? Just burns, right?
Just like burns, yeah.
Maybe he was just trying to get rid of something, and he was burning something in a can.
Well, the red flags for me is the talking to the media and trying to make, probably selling that to the media for reports, like going to the UK rags, right? And what was the other thing? It's gone out my memory, but there was another thing there that was a red flag for me. He told the kids to stay back and to come see him if you ain't back in 15 minutes or whatever.
But don't forget, the kids actually seen it as well. Kids actually seen the UFO.
Yeah.
Did they see a UFO?
Yes.
Or did they see a flash or something?
Have we got them?
No, they seen the UFO. I think it was one. I'm not sure if it was one of the children who seen it first, actually.
So you could have just paid the kids a couple bucks each just to say
No,
they saw it.
I was thinking that as well. Did he persuade the kids into this story and promised them a few pounds?
Yeah.
Or some privileges in the Scouts?
Yeah. Were they interviewed?
Yes, they were. All the kids were interviewed.
Have they come forward years later as another thing?
No, they never changed the story. Never did.
Yeah, I still suspect on this one, though.
Yeah, of course. There's definitely an element of suspicion on this one. Okay, Charles, what do you reckon?
Well, I reckon it's 2.
Well,
I don't know. I think he could have been burning something in a can, like a drum.
Sounds like the Falcon Lake to me.
Put some aerosol cans or something in there, and they could have exploded.
Yeah, but how would he get rid of the can?
I don't know, maybe dumped it somewhere else.
How would he do the light in the sky to fake a UFO? He may have had someone. Someone drag a fire lantern on a bit of fishing line through the forest, and that gave him the cue to do it. You know?
Ooh, I don't know.
Because he could create a flash on the ground, couldn't he, from cans exploding in a drum?
Yeah, but you'd have
but
to.
That wouldn't explain for it in the air, though, would it?
You'd have to get rid exactly, and you'd have to get rid of all the evidence.
Yeah.
This way, built a fire.
The Scoutmaster
flame.
Yeah, but fire damage. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, let's face it. These UFO events don't just happen to honest people, do they?
Yeah, but the problem is when somebody's a compulsive liar, everybody just
Exactly. But I think with everything else, I'm going to give it like 3.5. Not a 4, not a full 4. But I'm saying this is more likely to be a real event than it's not.
Yeah, but he could have made it all up to just because he wanted to make money, and that's why he went to the books.
Yeah. Or it actually did happen, so he embellished the story and tried to sell it.
Well, I wouldn't have done that. I just kept it to myself.
Exactly.
I wouldn't have told anybody.
No, but but another thing, the police officer said he was terrified. Now it's very difficult to fake that, you know.
Yeah. Because I mean, they're first hand to know if it's telling the truth or not, aren't they?
Yeah. We're trained police officers, you know.
Yeah.
Looks like Ken's found his way to Twitch. How about that?
Yes. Hi, Ken. Good to see you, man. No, I think this definitely takes a case with potential. But you've got to have your misgivings about this guy.
Yeah.
You look at the list of offences there, you know what I mean? He pinched a car. He was known for telling tall tales.
Yeah.
He was AWOL when he was in the army. I'm surprised they put him in charge of kids, actually. But
That's
there
all
you
I
go.
could. That's what they could. All
But there
they do
was
is
a
just
recent
scouts.
thing. Yeah, there was a recent thing in last year, wasn't it, about the Boy Scouts having a lot of pedo network in it, but like the Catholic Church. So yeah.
Oh well, he was never accused of that.
No, but still, there are a lot of criminal elements as Scout leaders, as you say. But
Yeah.
they're not all honourable people.
And the kids are silenced, aren't they?
Mm. Yeah.
Until someone gets brave enough to come out and say something.
But you know, after the incident, other UFO researchers pursued it for years, and they interviewed the children. You know, when they were adults later on in life, and they never changed the story. That's what gives it some credence for me.
Mm.
So if one of the kids was near to him when this happened, and they saw it close up like he did, I would have believed it. But with them being stuck back in that pickup or whatever he's in, you know, stay there out of the way.
Yeah.
And he's
but
up
it's the
to
same
something.
as Travis Fulton.
Yeah.
You know, it's very suspect when you start looking at all the little details, right? But yeah, so people just believe his story. See, that comment made by one of the backseat witnesses to Travis saying that they thought it was like a deer stand with spotlights on it. I thought, bingo. Just shine a spotlight at him with a timer or whatever. Foot switch. No, we got one of those on our old light back from the 70s there. I thought, oh, well, that would be easy to do. It's got a little button on it, you just step on it and the light comes on. But anyway...
just let me pick up on one thing on this case now that the kids said that they seen. Okay, back of the car, the Boy Scouts, who had been tracking the Scoutmaster's progress by watching the glow of his bouncing flashlight beam in the gloom, purportedly saw a big red ball of fire through the trees, as well as a series of red lights, a lot like flares. Maybe they were flares. Maybe that's why they looked a lot like flares.
Yeah, and if you think about a helium balloon with a flare dangling off it, being pulled down by a piece of fishing line by one of his co-workers or whatever, there you go. So,
and of course, there was a wave of UFOs in 1952 because it was the same year as the Washington merry-go-round, wasn't it? The lights over the White House, and there was a worldwide, global wave of UFO sightings and landings. So it was all over the papers. So, and they were printing the stories as well. So I suppose he could have seen a little opportunity for himself there.
Yeah, quick book.
Yeah,
and get a book wrote as well.
Yeah, was there any other UFO sightings, Ken's asking, in that particular area?
Yeah, that's a good point. There would have been, I'd imagine.
What was the year again? 57, did you say?
52.
52. That was like the hotspot years, wasn't it? 50s to 60s.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. UFO wave, as I said, yeah. Yeah, so Florida, 1952 UFO sightings.
You haven't put a year on that one. Chinese embassy. What year was that Chinese embassy one there? I should add it on, really. Do you remember?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he did mention the year, Paul.
It was in... didn't he talk about World War II? Must have been 60s, eh? Or around about the 50s or 60s, so it is thought.
It was 50s.
1950 to 60s, when he was working there, probably. Okay, what are we up to now? Scoutmaster done with.
Yeah.
The Folk Valley tinfoil alien counter. That's not the guy in the fire suit, is it?
Yeah.
Why are we doing that one again?
Oh, we can leave that one because we've got plenty. I'm not sure. Have we done that before? Have we?
Was that the fireman one? Fire suit? Is that the one?
Well, some people have said that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, we've covered that a couple of times now, I think.
Okay. That's okay. We'll move on. We haven't done this one anyway.
Yeah, okay. We'll just delete that one then.
Okay.
I'll keep a running list. When was the interview for Lewis there? Did we have that must have been recent, 2020, was it? July, June?
Yeah, hold on. Just to address Ken's question there. Yeah, as we were saying, there was a ton of sightings in 1952. This is the case we need, but I'll leave another link for Ken now. This is a list of sightings in 1952, which was covered by NICAP, I think. So let me.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, so there's a link there if you want to actually look through them, Ken, yeah? And see if you can find any in the Florida location that might be interesting. If you have time, of course. But you'll see there's one hell of a list, 1952.
Ken,
Could take some sifting too.
Make sure you click to follow me as well now you found Twitch Live.
Yeah.
That way you get alerts as well. And accept my friend request if you get one sometime. Oh, what was that? We got a beat for something. What in there?
Sounded like money.
Did sound like money, but I don't think that is the money one. I think they're using it when someone follows you. Follow the money. Follow back. Okay. There we go. I think it's come up on the activity feed, the doodling. So we might have to change our money one for the future. Apparently I have to get at least 50 subs here, so we need a lot of these people that are subbing on BitChute and YouTube to get that 50 before I can actually get past the affiliate stage. So I'm not sure if I need to get any more subs after that. But until I get partner stage, as they call it, I can't actually add cash buttons to the side chats and stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of learning to do with this site. Just like YouTube had a bit of learning, but that was a lot easier to suss out. But I still yet to work on scheduling. Apparently you have to use Google Calendar and you have to insert OBS plugin or something, and it will count down just like YouTube does. But yeah, I'm not too sure about it all at all. It would be good if someone actually did a tutorial how to add a calendar. Might be out there, a video of it. So
I think that's what's screwing a lot of it up, because people don't know what you're on all the time.
You think they would have had that as part of their feature by default, eh? But anyway, just read out this one. Are we ready? I can pause it.
UAL flight 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Ken, I'm not sure I've sent you the right link, but I think this one will be the one. In fact, I'm sure this one is. That's the NICAP one. That's it. There we go.
You
Sorry
better
about
tell Ken that your name's not Robert.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, he's probably gathered that by now anyway.
Yeah, by now, yeah.
He might not have done as well, because I've sent a message to you.
Yeah.
As he told me last week.
So when do you want to carry on with this one?
Yeah, go. It's a good case.
Flight 105, July 4th, 1947. Probably the most dramatic conversion from skeptic to believer was the experience of Captain E.J. Smith, a story that made nearly every major newspaper. As early as June 26, Captain Smith, a pilot for United Airlines, had been approached by reporters and asked for his opinion on the flying saucers being seen over the Northwest, an area where he regularly flew airliners. He told reporters, "I've never seen anything like that, Arnold's flying saucers, and the boys, other pilots, say they haven't either. What that other fellow, Arnold, probably saw was the reflection of his own instrument panel." On the evening of July 4 at Boise, Idaho, Captain Smith was walking up the ramp to board his plane, Flight 105, for a trip to Seattle, when someone mentioned the massive wave of saucers taking place all day over the Northwest. Captain Smith joked, "I'll believe in those discs when I see them." The airliner lifted off at 9:04 p.m. and turned towards Seattle. As Captain Smith remembers it, the control tower at Boise bid him farewell by joshingly warning us to be on the lookout for flying saucers. Shortly after takeoff, 5 disc-like objects, one larger than the rest, approached Captain Smith's DC-3 head-on.
Need a drink.
Stunned, Captain Smith and his co-pilot Ralph Stevens watched as the objects quickly reversed direction and took up a course that paralleled their own. For 45 miles, Captain Smith was able to keep the objects in sight. Co-pilot Stevens thought the objects were aircraft at first and flashed the airliner's landing lights. The objects reacted by changing formation from a very tight cluster to a more open one. The cluster of discs then began to open and close repeatedly before settling down into a loose formation. This group soon vanished and another group of 4 came into view. The new group soon merged and vanished into the northwest. The airliner's stewardess, Miss Marty Morrow, verified the sightings. Flight 105's next scheduled stop was the airport at Pendleton, Oregon, a place not unfamiliar with flying saucers. Captain Smith radioed ahead, telling the Pendleton control tower that he and his crew had just seen a whole flock of the mysterious flying discs. Airport officials contacted the press and had a newspaper reporter on the telephone as Captain Smith taxied his airliner up to the Pendleton Airport terminal. Within moments of landing, a shaken Captain Smith was relating all the details. The Captain Smith report was picked up by Reuters news service and sent around the world. Even some small 8-page newspapers in India carried a lengthy account of Captain Smith's experience, along with references to the massive wave of UFO sightings that were exciting the whole of the U.S. Source: UFOs, A History, 1947, pages 14-15, by Lauren E. Gross, copyright 1988, Fremont, California. Reproduced with permission. United Airlines Flight 105, Dr. James E. McDonald. Case 1. Boise, Idaho, July 4, 1947. Only about a week after the now famous Mt. Rainier sighting by private pilot Kenneth Arnold, a United Airlines DC-3 crew sighted 2 separate formations of wingless discs, shortly after takeoff from Boise, Refs. 8:10.
That was the guy with James Fox, wasn't it? Where they're doing a bit in the movie, recent movie, wasn't it, Robert?
Yeah,
okay. Wasn't one of the 2 weeks after?
When you say this is the guy, I mean, who is it?
There was a guy that also was flying with Kenneth Arnold 2 weeks later, saw the same craft he emits, but whether he was trying to get the same publicity, who knows? But
that
was on James Fox movie anyway.
Mm-hmm. But this is also similar to the Arnold sighting in a way, because he said there was, this guy said, the Smith guy, so there was 5 objects, but one was larger than the other. Now I think Arnold, he saw 7, didn't he? And he said the one that the strength was a different shape to the others. He didn't say larger. I don't think he said larger. I don't know. But there's definitely similarities and all in... hold on. Let's have a look at the exact date of this now. Oh, right. Okay. This is June 26. Arnold's sighting was in... Oh, my God. I thought it was July.
I think it was. But
okay, you carry on with that, and I'll double check on that. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I think we did have trouble with some of the dates, didn't we? That they weren't accurate or something.
No, with the Arnold sighting inaccurate,
10,
and then with this
20.
one, that definitely. Whoa, stop, Paul. Just a second.
You should carry on.
Okay. Yeah, it was my fault. Okay, so this was on July the 4th. Okay, Arnold sighting was on June the 24th. So this came. This came just after.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure this is the one they're referring to on James Fox, wasn't it? About the other pilot that was making fun of Arnold, and then he saw 2 weeks after himself.
Yeah, that'll be this guy.
I'd have to watch the movie again and see what the name was, but yeah, it seems to ring a bell. That, but then again, who knows? He might have been laughing and saw all the attention he got and thought he was jealous and decided to say he saw it as well.
I don't think that's a really good idea for a pilot, Paul.
Well, obviously he wasn't concerned
because
he
saw radar in it, wouldn't they, to see them?
Yep.
Not necessarily. But anyway.
I thought there was radar in it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think this guy's hoaxed anything. I think hoaxes are extremely bad anyway.
That's a wee bit suspect, people jumping on the bandwagon after the event, but same as Roswell.
No, I'm not suspect about this at all.
This is what I said. Surely there'll be some radar there around there somewhere.
Well, I don't know if there
should be following the aircraft.
Well, let's follow the case and
find out.
Yep.
10, 22, 28. I located and interviewed the pilot, Captain Emil J. Smith, now with United's New York office. He confirmed the reliability of previously published accounts. United Flight 105 had left Boise at 9:04 p.m. About 8 minutes out, en route to Seattle, roughly over Emmett, Idaho, co-pilot Stevens, who spotted the first of 2 groups of objects, turned on his landing lights under the initial impression the objects were aircraft. But studying them against the twilight sky, Smith and Stevens soon realized that neither wings nor tails were visible on the 5 objects ahead. After calling a stewardess, in order to get a third confirming witness, they watched the formation a bit longer, called Ontario Oregon CAA to try to get ground confirmation, and then saw the formation spurt ahead and disappear at high speed off to the west. Smith emphasized to me that there were no cloud phenomena to confuse them here, and that they observed these objects long enough to be quite certain that they were no conventional aircraft. They appeared flat on the bottom, rounded on top, he told me, and he added that there seemed to be perceptible roughness of some sort on top, though he could not refine that description. Almost immediately after they lost sight of the first 5, a second formation of 4, 3 in line, and a 4th off to the side, moved in ahead of their position, again traveling westward, but at a somewhat higher altitude than the DC-3's 8,000 feet. These passed quickly out of sight to the west at speeds which they felt were far beyond then known speeds. Smith emphasized that they were never certain of sizes and distances, but that they had the general impression that these disc-like craft were appreciably larger than ordinary aircraft. Smith emphasized that he had not taken seriously the previous week's news accounts that coined the since persistent term, flying saucer. But, after seeing this total of 9 unconventional, high-speed wingless craft on the evening of July 4, 47, he became much more interested in the matter. Nevertheless, in talking with me, he stressed that he would not speculate on their real nature or origin. I have spoken with United Airlines personnel, who have known Smith for years and vouch for his complete reliability.
Paul?
Discussion. The July 4th, 47.
Yeah, that's okay. So now you've got the co-pilot and you've got the stewardess also backing him up.
Yeah.
So if this is a hoax, then, another thing as well, if you're going to pull off a copycat hoax, why not say there were 7 craft like Arnold did? Why say 5? No. He's seen something.
Yep.
Go on.
Maybe. Still doesn't mean it's aliens though. It could have been some sort of
No one's saying it's aliens at this point. We're just saying there was something there.
July 4th, 47 United Airlines sighting is of historic interest because it was obviously given much more credence than any of the other 85 UFO reports published in press accounts on July 4th, 1947, CREF 8. By no means the most impressive UFO sighting by an airliner crew, nevertheless, it is a significant one. It occurred in clear weather, spanned a total time estimated at 10 to 12 minutes, was a multiple witness case including 2 experienced observers familiar with airborne devices, and was made over a 1,000 feet altitude range, climb out, that, taken together with the fact that the 9 objects were seen well above the horizon, entirely rules out optical phenomena as a ready explanation. It is officially listed as unidentified. Source: prepared statement by Dr. James E. McDonald to the United States House of Representatives, Committee on Science and Astronautics, Symposium on Unidentified Flying.
Far too many people have seen them, haven't they?
Yeah. I think that's a really good case. The one thing it's lacking is the radar data, but it might have been out of range, you see.
That's what I said about radar.
Yeah, and it would have only been commercial radar. It was even as powerful as military. But what was that? 84 UFO reports on July the 4th alone.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's a lot in a day. That.
Something going on there, isn't there?
Yeah. So these things are moving quickly as well.
Have we got any more information to this gun?
1940? No. 1947. We were still struggling to break the sound barrier, So, yeah. I think this is a good case. I've got to go 4 on that. I'd go 5.
With that many crafts, I would have said it's like evacuation time or something. All UFOs.
So we reckon it's a 4.
I don't know. It sounds like a bit of a invasion almost to me.
Without other eyewitnesses on the ground and radar data, I can't go 4 on this one.
That's the only reason I'm not going 5.
I'd have to go at least a 3 on it, maybe, because there's multiple witnesses this time. But that means a lot of people are on the 4.
So if that had happened these days as well, people would have, phone coverage of it as well, wouldn't they? The pictures, everything, video. And you put more to it then, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Because they didn't have them in them days, see?
Not at all.
Okay, we got to the end of your list.
Okay. No, we're not, are we?
Yeah, I think so. That's it. Oregon.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, he's an interesting one.
We're coming up to 2 hours anyway.
Okay. We can go for one more, can't we?
Yep.
Yeah. Go for it.
Unless the men in black show up.
Tell them to go and sod off.
Yeah, Ken says there, July 4th, Independence Day. You're not wrong there, pal. That was a lot of sightings.
Yeah.
It had, this sudden surge in UFO sightings between early 47 and all through that, you had to be something to do with a bomb, That's when we were starting to look at thermonuclear weapons as well, weren't we? That
maybe they thought they were under attack with shockwaves coming around.
Well, exactly. You go setting those things off at reverberates all through space, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think it drew somebody's attention.
Space and
Or
time.
some things attention.
Well, I bet them shockwaves are still going out there, aren't they?
Exactly.
Even now.
Yeah, still drawing attention to us.
Yeah.
Of course.
They're never ending, the shockwaves will be.
Yeah. So we just carry on, I guess. So let's see.
Yeah, giving you a new one.
Read aloud.
By Dr. Valery Yuvarov, circa 2004, Department N13, National Security Academy, St. Petersburg, Russia. Stopped at night on the side of the road, 2 Russian truck drivers were astounded by the sight of a spaceship before them, and amazed when one of the drivers was welcomed aboard. On the night of November 2nd, 1989, the air temperature dropped very suddenly to below freezing. 2 professional Russian truck drivers, Oleg Kirzakov and his companion Nikolai Baranchikov, were driving their truck from near the area of Arkhangelsk to Moscow. They were hurrying home to finish all the formalities related to their business trip before the holidays.
Exactly.
In the vicinity of Emsa railway station, the road was blocked by heaps of sand and gravel. The road in front of them was under repair, and Oleg had to turn onto a dirt road to Detour. On one bend in the road, the truck's headlights fell upon a huge structure, which was standing off to the right of the road. I thought it was some kind of construction equipment, said Oleg. There were many machines there because the road was under construction.
2 seconds, guys.
However, when I drove closer, I saw a big object that in the headlights had a metallic sheen to it. When we got to within 80 to 90 feet of the object, our motor stalled, and our truck coasted several feet further and stopped. The headlights that were connected to the backup power source were still on. My partner and I couldn't understand what had happened. The road at this point had a bend in it, and trees on the right side of the road blocked our view of the object. We understood that we were seeing something very unusual in front of us, and were afraid that something unavoidable would happen. Hence, I asked Nikolai to remain in the truck and observe events while I approached the object. I left the cab and decided to approach the object to examine it more closely. After I had passed the hood of the truck, I began to feel, with each step I took, an increased resistance from the air. My body seemed to melt, it became difficult to move, and I knew that if I got any closer to the object, I would not be able to move at all. Oleg turned back toward.
So does it mean the air may have been ionized and have less oxygen in the air around the craft? It's possible, because that would make you sort of like climbing up Mount Everest, right? That the legs get heavier and heavier because there's less oxygen. So maybe it wasn't some sort of force field, but some sort of environmental effect of the UFO there, ionizing the oxygen, so it wasn't normal oxygen, right? And of course, it's not good for. But we'll just carry on.
Toward the truck and tried to approach the object from another direction. He moved carefully, stopping after each step. He felt the same, constantly increasing resistance from the air. He succeeded in coming to within about 30 to 36 feet of the object. He stopped on the shoulder of the road and began to examine it very carefully. Very quickly, he came to the conclusion that this object was not of earthly origin. Truly, it was something very unusual. In front of Oleg, there stood a huge disc-shaped object, approximately 120 to 140 feet in diameter, with a dome-shaped top, on which no other structures were visible. Along the perimeter of the disc, there were some dark holes evident, which Oleg at first thought were portholes. Extending from the lower part of the object, there were 2 structures visible, which seemed to support the ship. The far edge of the disc was slightly elevated, and was resting on some birch trees, 2 of.
So 2 structures underneath kind of sounds like a fine balancing act. You know, normally you have 3 or 4, right, for landing gear, of its legs, right? Having 2 under a craft does sound really strange. If you, so it must have had anti-gravity, else it would just topple over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it said it was resting on top of birch trees, so maybe they were balancing it a little bit. Maybe
It's
just
kind
needed
of
to put...
strange, but I thought they were landed in front of the road, you know.
Yeah.
But
if you look at the
just
picture,
before you yeah.
in front of them. Now we're talking about birch trees of all things. So it kind of, I'm just trying to wrap my head around what the trees have got to do with the road.
Well, there's no trees around.
Yeah, the far edge of the disc was slightly elevated and was resting on some birch trees.
See, that doesn't make sense.
Two of which were broken.
Is it the same disc that's in the middle of the road? Because you wouldn't have birch trees in the middle of the road. Am I missing something here?
It must have been on the side of the road, and the crafter was... Obviously, it wouldn't be in the middle of the road. There'd be like kind of an avenue. Tree-lined roads are quite common, aren't they?
I'm just wondering if the translation from Russian report to English may have lost something. You know?
Yeah, may have lost something, yes.
Lost in translation, as you call it.
But you know what you were saying there, about the reports coming from Russia. You are correct to question some of them, because we know the Russian mafia were putting out fake documents, weren't they? That they claimed were official, and they weren't. There's not only that. If you're a UFO researcher trying to spin a tale, it's very difficult to look into it yourself, because getting in touch with those people isn't going to be so easy, is it? Tracking them down, and maybe getting a second opinion with the witnesses isn't going to be easy at all. So, and of course, you don't know what kind of disinformation and misinformation is coming out of Russia, because they generally hold things back, don't they? Nothing much ever comes out of Russia if they can help it. No, exactly.
Unless this was actually in a newspaper report, but that would have been good to edit a newspaper clipping.
Maybe, it would, of course, yeah. That would have been useful.
The newspapers would be censored, though, wouldn't they?
Yes, they were, Charles. Damn good point. In fact, talking about UFOs in Russia could get you in front of the firing squad at one time.
Get emotional then.
Yeah, no question about that.
2 of which were broken. The object looked dark and uninhabited, and there were no traces visible of windows, doors, or hatches. A fiery request. Why is this object here, in the middle of the forest, at night? What is its purpose? Maybe something has gone wrong and it needs assistance? All these questions flooded Oleg's mind, and at that very moment, in front of him, at a distance of an outstretched hand, right in the air, appeared a glimmering red, dotted line. This line formed a transparent, square-shaped screen, 150 mm x 150 mm in size, with rounded corners. Several words, written in red letters, appeared on the screen. Oleg did not remember the exact phrase, but the essence of the phrase was a request for burning fire.
It must have been in
Oleg
Russian.
continued. I realized that the screen was illuminated on the body of the object. I mechanically turned to look back at Nikolai, who was still sitting in the cab of the truck.
Even English for that.
Once again, I observed the screen, but this time it appeared to be in front of the truck. I attempted to look from one side to the other, but no matter where I turned my eyes, the screen remained in front of them. The distance to the screen remained constant, and I reached out my hand to try to touch it.
Screen business now.
My friend, Nikolai, who was watching these antics from the cab of the truck, later asked me why I moved my hands. The screen remained in front of me for the duration of the contact. However, the inscriptions which appeared on the screen remained only as long as was necessary for me to understand each one, and only then was the last inscription replaced by a new one. Only after Oleg understood what was being demanded of him, he carefully backed away from the object, constantly looking back toward the truck, and still sensing the same resistance. He returned to the truck and tried to open the right door of the cab, in order to obtain some kitchen matches.
Pause after this, Paul.
Despite the combined efforts of both men, they were not able to open the door for a considerable length of time.
Okay, now you know that bit there when he says he was walking towards the craft, and as he got closer, he felt a kind of a resistance. Does that ring a bell with you at all? Any of you two guys at all?
I just mentioned it before you were at the toilet.
Yeah.
Oh, you can tell him,
Yeah.
Charles.
Yeah,
What did they say?
Climbing up the mountain. There's thin air it makes your legs and joints heavy.
Yeah.
What I said is that it might be a natural thing to do with the UFO itself, where it sucked out all the oxygen around the craft, or it might even be consuming it. Maybe there's some sort of motor running. So as you're walking towards it, you're not taking in as much oxygen, so you become heavy-legged and laboured. It feels like you're being resisted, like climbing up Mount Everest. Yeah.
Well, do you know who said exactly the same thing? Described it exactly the same way.
Don't tell me.
Close.
Tell me, would it be Hynek or Valet?
Good God, no! They've never seen a landed craft in their life, Paul.
Well, they might have heard this Russian case. I don't know.
No. I'm talking about another witness who described feeling the exact same thing as he approached the craft. Jim Peniston.
Really?
Bentwaters, 1980. Yes.
Yeah.
He said it was like I was up to my waist in water.
Right.
I'm trying to walk through it. It's like wading through water.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that rang a bell, which is why I included this case. But there's some really strange stuff going on here. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Or missing information too as well. But the screen thing here has got me. How do the aliens know what kind of language to use? So yeah, normally they transmit it straight into your mind or something, don't they, with images or whatever. See the screen,
yeah.
but
Well, it might not have actually been there, because Ken makes a good point. It might not actually been there, only he's seen it.
Maybe, but still,
because we've talked for a long time about this intelligence, whatever it is, being able to project an image.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
just try and sound a bit more enthusiastic, Paul.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like this case much.
I personally don't think language comes into it, because these UFOs seem to be like homed into whatever country they're in. They could do their language or speak to people. You know, with mind.
Because they never actually. It's in rare cases anyway that people are saying they've actually physically spoken with the lips moving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean, through the mind. I mean, that's what.
It's always telepathic communication. Yeah.
Wasn't there some? Was it Wibbly Strieber again, or someone like that said they were taken on board ships when they were abducted, and there's a whole room of people in there watching some sort of display on a screen about how we're destroying the Earth and showing pictures.
Wibbly Strieber. But there's a load of abductees said that same thing, Paul.
But I'm not sure if it had any language, just pictures.
Images.
Yeah, and the school kids
from this doesn't
Africa
sound,
as
unless
well.
you want to call, unless you want to call all abductions bullshit. I don't see anything wrong with this case at this time.
But
it's just another case of.
Yeah, why show it to one of the guy in the head though? Why not just the two guys? That's another thing.
Well, the other one stayed in the cab, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose if he got out of the cab and they both went out, he'd show them both, wouldn't he?
Yeah. So, but this is another thing. Why did one have the urge to approach the craft, and the other one didn't? Now that was exactly the same with Peniston and John Burroughs at Rendlesham in 1980. John Burroughs stayed back, but Jim Peniston felt the urge to go towards it. Don't bring Travis into it. That's got nothing to do with it, Paul.
Yeah, but he got out the truck and the others didn't. But
Yes.
yeah, I don't know.
No, we don't know. We're looking into it. There's no point being negative about it. Otherwise, there's no point in covering these things. Do you know what I mean? We're looking at a subject that's so difficult to understand.
But we're getting the information second or third or 10th hand, not directly from the person. So we can't actually look at them in the eyes and all that sort of business.
No, we can't. We're just going to look. We're just going to look for common factors in the story that might match up because we're observing evidence.
Yeah, he hasn't seen any beings yet. If he saw alien greys back in what was the year name? What was the year on this one?
The year on this one was 1989, I think. Let me have a look. Yeah, 2nd of November, 1989.
There's a lot more known about UFOs and alien greys by then.
Well, so that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up because 1989 was the year the wall came down. So it was more open then than it was before.
Yeah. And of course, KGB or whatever it was, the mafia were selling documents as well once the wall come down. But anyway, carry on.
Yep.
Time. Suddenly, the door was able to be opened quite easily. Oleg removed the box of matches from the truck's cabin, together with a bottle of laboratory alcohol, which was used as an antifreeze in the braking system. Again asking Nikolai not to leave the truck, Oleg returned to the same place on the shoulder of the road where he had stood before. However, this time he was able to move easily, and he experienced none of the resistance he had encountered previously. He gathered some dry leaves into a pile, poured on some alcohol, and ignited them. Upon lifting his head, he observed that a passage appeared on the surface of the object, which extended into the interior, forming a corridor. At the distant end of this corridor, he could see a glimmering, bluish light. At first, I had the impression that a shadow was moving inside the corridor, but then I realized that something was moving in the corridor toward the opening. When I finally realized what was occurring, I began stepping backward and fell into the ditch along the side of the road. I jumped back onto my feet and continued to observe what was happening. Something approached the opening and I saw that it was a dark mass, which reminded me of a bag or sack. As the mass moved, it swayed and bent from side to side, and its periphery was vague in appearance. At this moment, a shaft extended from the object, bent, and descended to the surface of the ground. The mass slid down the shaft, and while increasing in size, approached the fire of burning leaves. I was paralyzed by fear. The mass stood by the fire for a moment, and then began to return to the object, taking with it the box of matches. Returning along the same path, the mass disappeared in the corridor, together with the box of matches.
That's a crazy story.
Only then did I finally succeed in extracting myself from the ditch. I returned to the road and glanced back at my truck again. The truck's headlights blinded me, but I nevertheless could see the frightened face of Nikolai, which was pressed forward tightly against the windshield.
Yeah, pause it, Paul.
An invitation to enter.
Yeah, so it's obviously been something lost in translation here, hasn't there? I don't think he's talking about an actual box of matches, you know. That just doesn't add up, does it?
Or a lighter?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's talking about some kind of fire kind of thing, you know. I don't know, but it's certainly a high strangeness, that's for sure. It's almost difficult to make this up, isn't it? You'd have a job making this one up.
Yeah, it's
but when he went back to the truck, why didn't he ask the other chap to come with him?
Oh, I mean, I don't think you're calm and calculated in. You're just seeing something that's otherworldly and.
Yeah, but if I was a passenger in that truck, I mean, I wouldn't want to sit there. I'd want to go with him.
Would you?
Yeah. Would you be?
You don't know the type of feeling that might overcome you.
I don't care. I'd still go.
Well, It's easy to say that now, you know, in the comfort of your own home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curiosity got me.
Well, do you know what? I felt that. I felt that until I
you would take his bird along as well, wouldn't you? You wouldn't go without your bird.
Take the bird. He'd upset me with his squawking.
He'd probably fly around the black mess head and land on it. Anyway. Yeah, might be that the guy was locked into the passenger seat, and you know how you can't move, right? So maybe that as well.
Shock, stress. God, man, there's lots of reasons why he didn't go and approach the craft himself.
Yeah, but it might be
nobody knows how they're going to react in a situation like that.
They might see one man.
It's the same with car accidents, though, isn't it? When somebody sees a car accident, some people freeze, and then some people go and help. Isn't it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Enter. For a long time, Oleg remained standing on the road and was unable to recover his senses. Realizing that he was witnessing an event that he might never again experience, he decided to wait and observe what would happen next. He had a sudden wish to observe the ship more closely, and immediately an invitation to enter the ship appeared on the screen, which remained visible in front of him. After a short pause, Oleg decided to approach the object. The first thing that caught his attention was several round openings, approximately 300 millimeters in diameter, which at first he interpreted to be portholes. Inside these openings, at a depth of 300 to 350 millimeters, a grid of intersecting lines, light gray in color, was visible. The central axis of the openings was displaced approximately 30 degrees from the plane formed by the surface of the object. Oleg was also able to examine one of the support legs that the object rested on. The leg consisted of two parts, which were connected at an articulating joint. The cross-section of each of the two parts of the leg was in the profile of a three-sided channel beam, with the lower part being smaller in diameter, such that it could be folded inside the upper portion. On the bottom of the ship, recessed areas were clearly visible into which the legs could be retracted. However, because of poor illumination in the area where the leg was located, Oleg was not able to examine in detail the actual construction of the leg. The far side of the object was resting on trees, and was slanted toward Oleg, such that the lower portion of the opening was just above the level of his head. In order to establish the material that the object was made of, Oleg wanted to touch it with his hand. A shaft came out of the portion of the object that was nearest to him. It appeared to be a round, smooth tube, with a diameter of approximately 50 millimeters. The tube was cold and felt metallic. Then, events developed in the following manner. I had a desire to look inside, but since the door was above my head, I decided to grab hold of the tube and jump. The instant I grabbed the tube, I found myself standing just inside the opening. There was nothing there in the form of either steps or an elevator. I did not feel any kind of external influence, but rather everything seemed to happen naturally, or by itself. I thought of the possibility of danger to me, and decided to be as careful as possible. At that instant, I received a message on the screen that I had nothing to be afraid of, and that I could enter. Upon entering the corridor, I looked at the walls and noticed the absence of doors. The corridor was significantly wider than the opening, the floor was flat, and the walls and ceiling formed an oval shape. I went along the corridor toward the shimmering light and felt that I was walking on a flat, metallic floor.
But they might have
Somehow,
as well.
I got the feeling that the surrounding walls did not have simply a decorative covering, but rather they were structural, and something was connected to them from the backside. There clearly was some sort of strengthening device attached to them. I did not want to touch the walls, so I am unable to say exactly what it was that served to strengthen them. Masses of lights. Oleg had to proceed along the corridor for approximately 20 to 25 feet. At the end of the corridor, he saw that it entered into a large hall, with a diameter of approximately 60 feet. On the periphery of the hall, there were 5 other entrances, similar in appearance to the one through which he had just entered. The ceiling in the hall was domed and it was emitting a soft, diffuse, blue light. Between the other entrances and along the walls, there were panels of flashing lights. Each panel appeared to consist of 5 or 6 vertical elements. To the left of the entrance through which Oleg had entered, 2 walls had no panels. In place of the panels, there were horizontal recesses in the walls, which were dark in color. Also to the left, he observed 2 dark, vague spots that looked like bags, which at first were motionless, but then began to move toward him. The bags were identical to the mass, which he had seen near the fire.
If you compare to Pascagoula, what the guys could remember to this story, this guy seems to have a lot of recall.
He does, doesn't he? And it's not regression either. Yeah,
that's sort of the red flag for me. But anyway,
it can be.
It seems pretty big inside as well, doesn't it?
Oleg stopped and stood motionless at the entrance to the hall. As soon as I looked around the hall, certain questions came to me, answers to which appeared immediately on the screen. But then I noticed that answers appeared in my head before I was able to read them on the screen. Several answers were accompanied by demonstrations of the operation of those structures that interested me. In such a manner, my question of the significance of the dark, horizontal recess in the wall off to my left was demonstrated to me. The recess was a 3-dimensional information screen, on which I was shown the interior of another sister ship, with the same moving masses. During the demonstration, the 2 masses in our ship were motionless. Then, they showed a ship in space, among the stars, and at the end of the demonstration, they showed the presenter of a Soviet television program called Vremya. Off to my right side, there was an oval control panel, or desk, located about 5 feet from the wall, on which there were many switches and lights. All of the illuminated buttons had a flat, square shape. Some of them were elevated above the level of the control panel, and others were flush with the top of the panel. On the upper surface of the lamps, there were some symbols in the form of geometric figures, e.g. circles, triangles, quadrilateral figures, lines, etc., and combinations of the above. The black switches on the panel were similar in appearance to toggle switches. There were no meters or scales on the control panel at all. In addition, Oleg described a long, straight divan, which stood next to the control panel, and a circular crack in the floor, which surrounded the central part of the hall. The crack gave him reason to believe that the central part of the floor was able to rotate, allowing the control panel to be positioned in front of any of the vertical panels situated along the walls. On the vertical panels, Oleg noticed the same types of lights that were on the control panel. Many of these lights were flashing. The entire interior of the hall was white in color, including the floor, and only from the ceiling shone soft, blue light. Looking upward, Oleg tried to locate the source of the light, while simultaneously asking about the nature of the light. No answer to his question appeared on the screen. Then, in response to his question, "Who are you, and where are you from?" the dome in the hall slowly started to dim, and like in a planetarium, a star map appeared on the ceiling. While Oleg was trying to find some familiar star system, one of the stars suddenly began to pulsate and descend slowly. The dark, almost black starlit sky, combined with the pulsating star suspended over Oleg's head, as well as with the flashing lights of the control and vertical panels, emitted enough light to permit him to see all elements in the entire interior of the spacecraft.
So now it's a 3D
In a minute,
screen.
The pulsating star slowly rose, and the dome illuminated with the diffuse blue light. Oleg was unable to carefully study and remember the star map shown to him. He asked where this pulsating star was located. They answered, "This is in your galaxy." I asked question after question. The answers I received were heard in my head before I saw them on the screen.
Galaxy's pretty big.
I asked, "What kind of ship am I on now? What kind of propulsion system do you use to make it fly?"
Yes, tell us
In
the
response,
formula.
I was told that this spacecraft was a scout ship, and used electromagnetic fields to fly. I was also told that they were studying our planet, which they need as a springboard to the future. In response to my question, do you have any connection with Bigfoot? They said, yes, and added that they watch Bigfoot continuously. As I was asking question after question, I suddenly noticed that a third mass had appeared in the hall, and then a fourth. I watched a conversation take place between them, and came to the understanding that the time for me to leave had arrived. My next thought was to leave something with them for a memory.
The mess is very strange.
I took off my watch, and wanted to put it on the floor, but at that moment, I was told that they had a complete knowledge of the Earth and needed nothing. For the first time during this visit, they asked me, why do I use a watch made in another country? Then I asked, is it possible to see you once again? They said, if you are in danger, we will find you within 15 seconds. Backing out a few steps from the hall, I turned and went along the corridor towards the opening. As I came up to the opening of the spacecraft, I took hold of the tube by my right hand, and I immediately found myself standing on the ground. Not looking back, I went to the ditch and crossed over to the road, to the same place where I had stood a few minutes before. When I looked back, I noticed that the tube and the opening had disappeared. After a few seconds, I saw the outer rim begin to move in a clockwise direction. The dome began to move approximately 30 seconds later in a counterclockwise direction, and a luminescence surrounded the spacecraft. As the revolutions became faster, the luminescence enveloped the spacecraft, and it became a ball of light. Oleg noticed that the rotation of all parts of the craft and the luminescence was happening in absolute silence. At this moment he saw on the road 2 more cars with their headlights on. For a few seconds this distracted his attention from the spacecraft. The sound of the trees cracking made him turn and look at the spacecraft. The ball of light slightly shifted position and slowly began to rise. Abruptly accelerating, the craft shot out of sight towards the northeast. His friend Nikolai got out of the truck and together with the occupants from the other vehicles, came up to Oleg.
Why did it crash?
They asked him a lot of questions. Oleg was impressed by the experience, but at the same time, was too moved to speak or fully realize all that had just happened. His hands and legs were trembling. When he got into his truck, he was unable to use the accelerator or to shift gears. He had to let his partner drive. Oleg leaned back on the truck seat and looked at his watch, which he still had in his hand. From the moment the truck had stopped, 20 minutes had passed. They still had a day and a half to get to Moscow, their destination. About the author, Dr. Valery Mikhailovich Uvarov is the head of the Department of UFO Research, Paleosciences, and Paleotechnology of the National Security Academy of Russia, and has devoted more than 14 years to ufology, as well as to the study of the legacy of ancient civilizations.
He's starting to sound like Goof on.
He is the author of numerous papers on paleotechnology and paleoscience, as well as ufology and esoterica, published in the Russian and foreign press.
Okay, do we need to read out the rest?
No, not really.
He has initiated and participated in a number of expeditions to India and Egypt in search of material evidence of ancient knowledge.
Oh, God.
He is a regular speaker at international ufological conferences and gives lectures and seminars in Russia, the UK, USA, Germany, and Scandinavia.
That makes me a bit critical then. Okay.
Scandinavia. He was a speaker at the 2004 and 2005 Nexus conferences in Amsterdam and the 2004 Nexus conference in Brisbane. Nexus Magazine P.O. Box 30, Mapleton.
There we go, Australia. I don't know about this one.
Well, truck driver noticed a lot of stuff in there.
He's better
I
than
don't
Cop.
know what that. I just don't know what the hell to make of it. To be honest, there was certain parts of the story that seemed to be legit. That I've heard before in other contactees.
Yeah, but he might just take bits and pieces
other parts
and
that were
made a
just
story.
so hard to believe.
The black blobs is possible if you link paranormal with aliens, right? And yeah, you often hear about shadow people and blobs moving around the floor. You heard a Jinso crash. I don't know if he's around. I don't think he's joined our Twitch, but he talked about seeing black blobs running around the floor and stuff. So who knows? It might be interdimensional, but still, why would a UFO that can take off like it did crash into a tree when you could just land in the middle of the road, unless the craft was bigger than
it didn't crash into anything, Paul.
It just landed.
Yeah, come on, you're throwing the case off completely now, by saying stuff like that.
Where it landed and come through the top of the trees.
Yes, it only took a couple of branches off. That's hardly going to bother a craft like that.
Trees overhang the roads as well, don't they?
And this Mikulovich guy, I've done a bit of a research on him, and I can't find anything that's too derogatory about him.
Yeah.
The only thing that I did find that somebody suggested that, his education, that he didn't actually finish his courses,
You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
Mind you, I've done one course where I didn't finish the paper, and so I didn't get the final certificate, which is kind of stupid, I know, but and it's one of those courses where you have to keep doing refresher ones every year just to keep the certificate, and that was with Cisco, so I never bothered finishing it. It was like a teaching Cisco basics at university, and I thought, nah, stuff it. They picked someone else for the job. No, they picked someone else for the job because we had to do this course, and we did it in like a fast session. What normally takes normal people 2 or 3 weeks to do, we did it in 3 days. And we had to pass all these tests and get 95% and all that sort of stuff, which I did. And the final one, which they didn't tell us, was this course, how to use the administration side of it to add students onto the courses, because it was like a teaching Cisco qualification, and they picked the other guy, and they didn't tell me about this other paper. I thought it was all finished with months later, and I didn't really want to go back into that study mode again, and not have a qualification that you couldn't use because they already picked someone else for the job. I thought, I won't bother finishing it. So maybe the same situation happened with him, where he had to do these qualifications to get the job, and they paid for it and all that sort of stuff, and maybe they chose someone else, and he said, stuff it.
Well, you have to consider as well that he's made a decent living out of ufology, I mean, he's spoken at a lot of conferences in the United States. He's also got a strange claim. That this is what he was speaking about at one particular conference. My conversation with an alien. Valerie describes his interactions with a humanoid alien in the Siberia wilderness and their discussion on Earth's history, multidimensional worlds, our place in the cosmos, and much more. That sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So we got a new person on the site. I'm not sure who it is.
Okay.
Cast. What's it say? Casting on them. I'm not sure we've seen that person around before. Oh well, I haven't heard of UFO cases in a long time.
Okay, what's he saying here? I think the last one I remember was like Phil Schneider, the dude who gave you... at Dulce Air Force Base. He claimed there was a fight out, wasn't there? In an underground at Dulce Air Force Base. Phil Schneider was a strange one. I think most people consider him to be full of it, basically. And
there was
yeah.
an FBI report that came out on him that said that he had mental problems and he
Yes, his wife said that.
self-mutilated,
His
cut
wife.
off fingers and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I don't believe Phil Schneider is up to much, to be honest. I'm not sure I believe any of his stuff whatsoever.
And the
but he died.
suicides.
Hold on, Paul, you're cutting me out all the time, man. Yeah, he died under unusual circumstances as well. It was purportedly a suicide, but of course the UFO people kind of went into overdrive and said it was an assassination and that kind of stuff. But no, I don't lend much credibility to Phil Schneider's story at all.
If you read the autopsy report, which is also available, they reckon it's possible to, the way it was tied, to use one hand to do it. So everyone was saying, oh, you would need two hands to do what he did. No, but the expert says otherwise. Of course, he was using a stretchy tube as well, so as you put more weight on it, it made the slip knot tighter. Yeah, and he also phoned up his sister, make up a story that if he gets died, like 2 weeks before, was it, that it's suspicious and all that. So maybe he wanted to leave it suspicious while committing suicide. To make it look like a conspiracy. But we have covered Phil Schneider. I'm not sure if I've got a truth about Phil Schneider playlist, but I should have done one probably. There might be one there, I'm not too sure now. But just to make it easier to find the live, because we're up to getting near 600 episodes now, so, and half of those are 3 hours long. So yeah, we do multiple cases in all the time that we do a podcast. So, and yeah, he's gone. Yeah, there's a lot of disinformation out there and misinformation as well. So you got to be careful of that. But yeah. Apparently, in the FBI report on live that we looked at,
yeah,
I got to subscribe on YouTube at the same time. So that should be the noise for the subscribers on this one too, the Twitch. I'm not sure if you can change the sound effects or not, so probably can't. No. But yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, apparently they said he had low-grade radioactive material. Not sure where he got it from, whether it was like second-hand military stuff that sort of was thrown away in the trash and he got hold of it by accident. Maybe it wasn't meant to be in the stockpile, but apparently he was handing it around in the audience. So if anyone that attended his lectures got cancer and all that after, maybe they don't realize they got it from his presentation. So yeah, kind of scary when you think about that. So maybe if you go to UFO lectures, make sure you got EMF meters and what do you call it? The radiation gyro thing, what they call it. Uses
the clicker things.
It uses special gas and a tube. They call it something tube. I can't remember the science word for it now. But yeah. Basically, the radiation the ionization goes through the gas and causes a change in voltage and makes a click sound. You're back with us, Roberts. So what do we got after this case? We got another one just to wrap up. We got 20 minutes left or so.
Yeah, I think we can do one more. Is that okay with you, Charles?
Yeah, carry on.
What do we got here?
Okay, we'll do one more.
Yeah, guided counter. But I was trying to think of the gas they used in it. Was it radon gas or something like that? But anyway, dude was carrying around a low-grade radioactive material. Yep, I said the same thing. There you go. Another one. Yep, we got another one to go.
Yeah, links that. This is another landing case. 1970, Lake Anten. It's a Scandinavia somewhere, isn't it?
Yep. There we go.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's Finland.
Yeah, it doesn't say what year number it was, does it? Oh, right here. 70. I just need to cut and paste that into the folder, because I've got to try and make all the description up after the show, even though it's different now, to YouTube, because they kicked us off. The Men in Black, or the fraud channels, got to them. All the stuff there. So, yeah, I'll just get it reading, I guess.
Yeah, don't read it from there, Paul. Just go to the main body of text. Where are you going now? Whoa, no.
Not that far.
Well, I was just going to select it all and start reading it.
Oh,
this is the main.
Yeah, but you haven't selected from the top, Paul.
You said the main body that is under the table contents.
Yeah, that's the main body there. Where, oh, jeez, you're going up and down like crazy, man. I'm going dizzy here watching you.
This is the main body under the table of contents.
Can you scroll back up a little bit? I thought I could have sworn you missed a bit there.
Well, that's the summary. That's the summary.
Yeah, you need that. Yeah, you need that. There's the start. There you go. That's where you should go from.
Yeah. We're going to get the table of contents, though, if we do it that way. Hang on.
Well, you could skip through that, yeah.
And we'll just get to the top of the table. Where is it? Quite a long one.
Yeah, sure. Good idea.
Well, why does it go so fast when you want to scroll?
I don't know. It doesn't do that for me, Paul. I don't know why it does it for you.
Yeah. Maybe because it's a fast computer.
Nah, it can't be that. You've got to have control.
The CPU's been quite good lately.
Good.
Fingers crossed.
OT only was a sighting of a strange light over Lake Anten in the summer of 1970 witnessed by multiple people, but it would result in the discovery of strange indentions in the ground where many of those same witnesses claimed to see the glowing object land. Did a UFO land near Lake Anten? What's more, it was the distinct feeling of those who investigated the case, at least according to the April 1971 edition of the Scandinavian newsletter. Officials tried to put the carpet over the fire in order to produce another solved case. In reality, the case remains unsolved. And more importantly, remains an incident that likely has more to contribute to the overall picture of the UFO and alien question. We have examined previously two close encounter incidents that took place in the opening months of 1970 in Finland. And while we won't go over those two incidents here, we will examine several other incidents that took place in the immediate weeks and months that would follow the Lake Anten incident in the Scandinavian region. It just might be, however, that those two incidents do indeed have a connection to the incidents that we are about to examine here. Although several investigators and organizations would conduct research and investigations into the incidents, Björn Lippold and Lloyd Sima perhaps deserve recognition for their significant contributions. As is the case with Sven-Olof Fredriksson of the Jikoff Group. It is from their work that many of the reports and published accounts would follow.
There we go.
Yeah, so we can skip that nicely now. That's really handy if you do it that way, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some pictures coming up. There we go, disclaimer, that'll do. Read from top to there.
Something red in color over Lake Anten. On the evening of 29th into the August 30th, at around 11:30 p.m., and approximately 25 miles outside of Gothenburg near Lake Anten, Ennebacken in Sweden, multiple residents of the area would witness one of the most bizarre evenings on record. Reports would suggest that at least 20 witnesses local to the area would observe a brilliant color-changing ball moving overhead. It was approximately at the height of the treetops, which were illuminated in the wash of the glow from the object. One witness would describe the object as oblong with an indication of a cupola. What's more, several of the witnesses would describe a soft humming sound that appeared to accompany the appearance of the object. The Lake Anten incident was witnessed by multiple people. Another witness, Mr. Carlson, a local farm owner, would claim that he was about to go to bed a little time before midnight. However, as he did so, he noticed that the cars outside were all stopping in the middle of the road. Sensing something out of the ordinary was underway, he was about to look outside when his son ran in stating that something red in color was moving over the town. It was then that Carlson saw the strong red light moving to and fro above the treetops. He would continue that the object behaved so strangely as it moved across the area. He would state how the speed would vary, and that the glowing red object would temporarily disappear only to reappear again a short time later. Multiple witnesses see the same thing. Carlson, along with his wife, would continue to watch the bizarre aerial vehicle as it traversed the nearby skies. They would venture outside for a short time, but would watch most of the events from their window. At one stage, Mr. Carlson would recall that it appeared to land at the meadow in front of the forest. Shortly after this, they would witness yellow-white beams of light emanating from the object. They would continue to watch the object for several hours, eventually returning to bed at around 2 a.m. When they did so, the object was still outside their home, although reports from other witnesses would state that the craft would disappear a short time after this time. The incident was reported in the Scandinavian newsletter. Another witness was Mr. Nielsen, who was one of the motorists who had stopped his car on the road when they saw the bizarre craft overhead. He would claim that it was just before 11:30 p.m., when he and a friend were driving along the highway, when they noticed a red light moving to and fro and up and down. Every now and then, it would stand still. They would watch the light in their stopped vehicle for around 10 minutes before going on with their journey. At around the same time, Mrs. Aronson, along with her friend, witnessed a bright, illuminated ball which was moving across the sky just above the trees. She would further describe the object as being an extremely bright red. Another motorist, Mrs. Olson, was driving home with her husband after visiting friends. They would notice a strange glowing object at just short of midnight. They would describe the object as looking similar to a rear lamp on a car, and watched it for 3 to 4 minutes before carrying on their way. More witnesses on the other side of the town. As well as the witnesses on the road near to Carlson's farm, there were 8 further witnesses who would observe events from the other side of the town. For example, Mr. Johansson would claim he, his wife and 2 friends first witnessed a bright, red ball above the area at around 11:45 p.m.
Sounds a bit like
Like
Shelley's
other
sighting.
witnesses, they would further state that the object was the typical size as one might expect to view the full moon. Aside from the bizarre movements, only the bright, glowing red color indicated that it wasn't our celestial companion. Like the other witnesses, Johansson and his group watched the object moving up and down and to and fro over the top of the trees of the forest. At one stage, they would even recall seeing something like a beam of light coming from the ground. They would recall looking that the light was constant and reflected off the surface of the nearby lake. Witness drawing of the incident. In fact, so intrigued was Johansson that he and the husband of the other couple with them jumped into their car and attempted to drive to the source of the light near the forest. However, as they negotiated the roadways to the woodland, they would notice another car pulled up on the side of the road. In it were 2 gentlemen who were also attempting to locate the source of the light. As the 4 witnesses discussed the situation, the lights suddenly went out. Johansson and his friend would turn their car around and then return home. Who the 2 gentlemen were and where they went following the exchange with Johansson and his friend remains a mystery. Johansson and the other witnesses in his car would see the strange glowing object again at around 1 a.m. from their home. An object that weighed 5 tons and no more than 28 feet across. Johansson.
Interesting to pay attention to this bit because, we looked at Ted Phillips and his work, didn't we? and some of the landing cases. And the diameter of some of the objects were quite small, sometimes 12, 20, 30 feet, sometimes a little more, but not often more than about 30 feet in diameter. Yet the impression in the ground kind of suggests that there was tremendous weight there. For something that flies kind of lighter than air. It's really kind of strange. I don't know what to think of that. But it's a good. I think this is quite a good case because we've got multiple witnesses that didn't know each other. So that's a good start, anyway.
Johansson would prove to be a vital witness in the sighting. Not least as it was on his land that he and several of the others in his group would discover the strange indentions on the ground, near to where the lights appeared to be shining upward the previous evening. The indentions were approximately 10 feet apart in an equilateral triangle. What's more, they were a near-perfect circle approximately 40 centimeters in width and around 7 centimeters in depth. The depth of these impressions would suggest that the object that made them was extremely heavy. Photograph showing the alleged markings of where the UFO landed. Mr. Limu, who performed investigations at the scene, would estimate that the object likely had a weight in excess of 75 feet at each of the indention points. Furthermore, this would suggest to Limu that the object had an overall weight of 5 tons. Even how the indentions were made would suggest that the object that made them had most likely come from above. This, of course, would not only match the witness statements that claimed to see the glowing object land in a meadow near the forest, but also that the lights seen by multiple witnesses were by and large in the same area as the indentions now were. Furthermore, given there were no broken trees or branches around the indentions, Limu would estimate that the object could have been a maximum of 28 feet across. Is the location of importance?
What's that again, Paul?
The Enneback.
Yeah, 28 feet across and 5 tons. So your average car is weighing in at around a ton, isn't it? Am I about right there? I think so.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, okay.
So how long is a car?
Well, a car would be your average car would be around about 12 feet, 10 to 12 feet.
So
unless you're in America, of course.
It's like 3 cars, which is 3 tons, and
yeah, so it's not
far-fetched that it could have been faked. So what you're saying? Yeah, it's not far-fetched that they may have faked it.
They may have faked it. I knew you'd say that, Paul. Everything's a hoax and a fake with you. But anyway, let's roll on.
The older cars in them days were heavier though, because they're more metal, wasn't they?
Yeah. Also, yeah. I mean, obviously, it would be a good advance to make vehicles lighter as long as they're strong.
Yeah.
I want to be the
less fuel, more performance.
I want to be the skeptical person here. Those indents look very much like what you get when you want to stabilize something like a tractor. Some of those diggers they use on the side, they can lower down these things and then keep stable, lifts them off the ground, sort of thing.
Paul, I used tractors for years, and they didn't have no stabilizers, mate.
The ones they use for roadside, where they want to stabilize them.
I think you used JCB ones on them roadworks. Stabilizers on the side of them, I think is on about.
Yeah, if they're lifting up stuff.
I don't know what the hell that's doing in the middle of the field. Plus, you've got all the witness sightings, the witness reports of something being in the air. Now, I'm not sure what you're describing, Paul. I'm not really sure how that flies. Was there heat signature? That'd be interesting.
Yes.
Ennebakan region is one of an authentic countryside setting, with many rugged forests and woodland. What's more, and interesting to those who have studied UFO encounters, the area has numerous waterways and lakes, as well as mountainous regions. What's more, whether of consequence or not, the Johansen property, where the indentions were discovered, contained several old fruit trees. While this might seem like a trivial detail, we have examined previously, within the files of UFO researcher Timothy Good, that many alleged UFO incidents revolve around the study, cultivation, and evolution of many of the Earth's fruits. These are then, if we subscribe to the theories for a moment, mixed and developed by these apparent extraterrestrial visitors, and then used for their own sustenance. Whether there is any benefit to human beings from this apparent arrangement, and how that benefit might manifest itself, is perhaps open to debate. As, indeed, are the claims themselves. However, might it be that at least part of the reason for the landing was to obtain fruit samples? Might that have been what the bursts of light were, either above the woodland, or from the ground? Admittedly, such notions are beyond outlandish, and take speculation to its absolute limits. It just...
Remember the Bigfoots do fly UFOs, and they do have a thing for apples and things, so maybe.
Oh, Paul, that's too far out for me.
One of them a skeptic and one too far out. Okay. Can't have it both ways, but anyway.
Jesus, you've gone from
just
one
might
extreme
be,
to
though,
another.
That we should practice what we preach against mainstream thinking, and keep these claims on our collective mental backburners. Evidence of information suppression? There also appears to be evidence of suppressing information of the case, even before it might have come to light. For example, based on information from the police and the press, as well as an investigation by Tage Eriksson of the Research Institute for National Defense, a general explanation began to take hold that the whole incident was the work of two hoaxers using a hot air balloon. Photograph showing the alleged markings of where the UFO landed.
I've seen that already.
There was even an insinuation that the two hoaxers were the two men in the mystery car, a blue Saab according to the report, that Johansen and his colleagues ran into when attempting to locate the source of the light. However, when UFO researchers interviewed the alleged hoaxers, they denied being both the perpetrators of the hoax or the two men at the scene on the night. They would rightly point out that their car was a green Fiat, for example. What's more, one report would suggest that the reasons for promoting the balloon hoax story were to calm the old man, Johansen, who lived at the property where the object landed. Was this really the case? After all, some might see the compassionate side of this decision. Or might it be more a case of authorities using Johansen's genuine frustration to their own advantage? A genuine open case. No radioactivity was discovered at the location, which would come as a surprise to investigators. And while they still believed the hoax claims to be an exercise in disinformation, they had to now consider the possibility that such claims could be accurate. However, some researchers would question how thorough the soil samples actually were, especially in light of the seemingly pushed story of the balloon hoax. There is also the question of tire marks allegedly found on the lawn near Johansen's house. Was this the hoaxer's car? Or might they have been those of the mystery blue Saab? If so, just who was driving that vehicle? Were they merely investigating the light like Johansen? Or might they have been at the location in an official capacity? And once more, if this was the case, just what was their reason for being there? Is the Lake Anten landing a genuine account? Of the sighting at Anten, investigators would eventually conclude that the incident either was a clever hoax, although it appeared unlikely, or that the object, whatever it was something unknown. What is perhaps also interesting to note, at least according to the reports at the time, is that the region in question had experienced around a dozen very similar sightings going back to the fall of 1969. Most of these encounters would describe an almost identical red or yellow object. Perhaps even more interesting was the strange humming or, as one witness would recall, a whistling noise that also accompanied these sightings.
Ooh.
We would imagine that such strange objects, of an almost identical color, in the same location, all within 1 square mile, almost certainly share one connection or another. And what's more, there are likely many other sightings and encounters that likely share other connections also.
That's kind of convinced me a little bit that there might be actually definitely something to this. That humming and whistling sound, that's been described, God Almighty, on more occasions than I care to recall now. That's consistent with so many other sightings.
And Bigfoot's like to whistle too.
Oh, Bigfoot's in Finland. I don't know. They've got some heavily wooded area there, haven't they?
They're flying the UFO and going woohoo from the cockpit.
Well, that's a bit silly, isn't it?
Not necessarily. Might be a way they communicate, like Wookiees, you know.
No, it's definitely something to do with the propulsion system. Good God, man.
That's normally like an electrical hum. It could have been his bird even, you know, you never know. Anyway, carry on.
What bird?
Also,
my bird is
other sightings over the Scandinavian region in the early 1970s. Whether there is a connection or not, several other sightings throughout the Scandinavian region are also on record during the 1970 to 1971 era. It would certainly be irresponsible to not examine them in relation to the above incident.
Rob's got no
What we will
sense of
notice,
humor.
however, as we do briefly examine these other cases, is the discrete similarities between them. And we might also remind ourselves that these are but a small sample of sightings we could choose from. It would certainly appear, as we are sure you will conclude over the following minutes, that not only was there something very strange underway in Scandinavia during the opening months of the 70s, but the same intelligence very well may have been behind all of them. Flying saucer over Norway, October 1970. Although the exact date is unknown, an incident thought to have taken place toward the end of October 1970 is perhaps of interest to us here. What's more, it would take place at a similar time to that which unfolded over Anten. At around 11:30 p.m. on the night in question over the town of Helleland in Norway, a motorist, Rita Salvesen, would arrive home following a particularly grueling journey from a business trip as market advisor. Along the way, he had noticed a bright, glowing light overhead. What's more, he had an extremely close encounter with the said object. He would, however, despite the incident weighing on his mind, continue to negotiate the relatively quiet roads under the constant downpour of rain that had accompanied the arrival of evening. A similar incident occurred in 1970 over Norway. Salvesen had been driving for around 6 hours. He would continue to keep the object in his sight and carried on along his route, desperate to get home. When he did arrive home, he would go straight inside and immediately tell his wife of the incident. He would state to her that he had undergone a strange experience that he had no explanation for. What's more, it was both a frightening sight, but at the same time, fantastic. He would then relate the incident to his enthralled and slightly confused wife in full. No defining features on the exterior. He had set off on his journey around 5:30 p.m., and while the journey was largely uneventful at first, he would soon notice a dazzling light in the skies overhead. In fact, so bright was the light that he had to stop his vehicle in order to attempt to look at it. When he opened the car door, he noticed a bright circular object above the roadway. He would state how the object was completely silent, and would move forward with speed before coming to a stop. It would repeat this several times. The next thing he realized, however, the object was only several feet from his vehicle. He would reach into the open window of the car and grab his notepaper in order that he could compose a sketch of the bizarre object. Salvesen would later describe it as a flying saucer. There are many UFOs reported in the Scandinavian region. He would later state that at this stage, despite the close proximity of the incident, he was not at all afraid. He would also state that this was likely due to the fact he was overcome with a need to draw the object while it was in front of him. Because of this, he had very little time to think. His description of the object was almost identical to many others of disc or flying saucer-shaped crafts. He would claim that there were no doors, windows, nor hatches. Neither were there any joints, grooves, or any type of connecting seam. The only
You're not allowed to have
differentiating
joints.
feature of the shining metallic exterior was a part at the edge of the body
Not those
that
kind
had
of
the appearance
joints.
of corrugated iron. He would estimate, although he couldn't be sure, that the object was close to him for around a minute. Then, without warning, it would shoot straight up into the air at great speed. The next thing he knew, he was falling to the ground, landing in a sitting position, seemingly knocked off balance by the blast of the takeoff. A cracking sound that rang out.
Blast.
As he was coming to his senses with the realization that he had fallen to the ground, he was also coming to terms with the fact he had also heard a loud cracking sound. When he pulled himself to his feet, he could see a large crack in the front window of his car. He instinctively looked up to the sky and noticed that the disc was now nothing more than a bright, red-yellow object, similar to a fireball. Then it vanished from sight. He returned his attention to his car once more. He noticed there was broken and splintered glass on the seats and the floor. It was around this time that he realized he had cut himself when he had fallen to the ground.
Hang on, but...
Careful not to injure himself further, he returned inside his vehicle, and then started the engine.
That one sounds like a red flag to me. As you can only crack the front window, you can't get glass splinters from it. And the side one shatters into fine chunks of glass that you can't cut yourself on either. Because of accidents, right?
Yeah. No, well, geez, you'd have a hell of a job to get the glass to come in. You'd have to go through it. You'd have to break it completely, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm not even sure if you can do that. Even if you hit it with a sledgehammer, it doesn't sort of splinter
Yeah,
off.
you can. Yeah, you can.
Knock him to the ground.
Mm.
Blasted away.
I don't know, it's a wee bit suspect red flag there for me, but anyway.
Engine. After moving the vehicle to the side of the road out of the way of any oncoming traffic, he would quickly sweep the seats of glass. Then, after testing the lights, brakes, and engine, he would set out on his way home.
Didn't break
Several
the headlights
hours later,
then?
he would inform his wife of the incident. Around 2 months later in January 1971, this time in Finland, another similar incident would unfold. The Sapunki Landing, Finland, January 1971. 47-year-old Mauno Talesa was eating breakfast with his wife, Marta, at their farmhouse in the village of Sapunki in Finland one January morning in 1971 at a little after 6 a.m. It was while they were eating that they noticed a bright light heading toward them through their kitchen window. They would recall how the glowing object appeared to be at low altitude, and was not moving particularly fast. Perhaps even more unnerving and bizarre in equal measure, was the fact that the object would land directly outside their kitchen window. Now, with the object being in such close proximity, the brightness was such that it almost blinded the married couple to look at it directly. What's more, the entire area in the immediate vicinity was now awash from the light blue glow. The pair continued to watch for several more moments. Then, without any warning, the object took off directly upwards into the sky. It disappeared from sight several moments later. As it did so, the electricity supply would cut out for several moments. Yet another similar account is on record from Finland in 1971. The pair would then go about their normal daily chores, attempting to put the bizarre episode out of their minds. However, when daylight began to fade, they would notice a strange indentation in the snow, exactly at the same place where the glowing object had landed. It appeared to be 3 indentations in total. And what's more, they were in a very distinct triangular shape. Even more intriguing, part of the snow in the middle of this triangle appeared to have melted. When the snow melted away, the pair would make an even stranger discovery. The grass underneath appeared to have changed color to a sickly gray-blue. Mr. Talesa would take a sample of the earth in this particular spot. The following day, he would visit the local newspaper offices. Mainstream science more concerned with reputation than truth? The newspaper would begin to investigate the incident, and would soon discover that the Talasas were not the only ones to witness the bizarre events. Not only did their immediate neighbors witness the strange glowing object land and take off from the Talasas' property, but several other witnesses, some up to 3 miles away, also saw the mysterious object. There were also several other intriguing details to note. For example, the object could definitely not be explained away like a balloon of any kind due to its movements into a relatively strong wind. What's more, mainstream scientists who examined the soil samples would suggest something along the lines of a meteorite or a lightning strike to have caused the change in the elements of the soil. However, we can eliminate the meteor suggestion straight away. Given the number of witnesses, a meteorite would have been easily recognizable to most if not all of them as such. Furthermore, the first sighting in the village was at 5:58 a.m., with the last at 6:15 a.m. with that of the Tolossas. Once more, even those who are not experts in weather conditions realize that lightning strikes do not last 17 minutes. Indeed, as insinuated by the report in the Scandinavian newsletter report, the scientific establishment appeared to be more concerned with reputation, and perhaps even funding we might add, than the genuine truth of such bizarre, but obviously real incidents. The Jakobstad incident, March 1971. According to the Finnish newspaper Jakobstads Tidning, a UFO incident in late March 1971 at Perho would unfold. And it would also contain some similar details to the other incidents we have examined here. The main witness, Matti Lasila, along with his friend, Jorma Vasala, were riding their mopeds on the evening of March 23. As they were doing so, at around 8:30 p.m., they noticed a strange glowing object seemingly hovering just above the treetops. They would estimate the glowing object was around 200 feet above the ground, and would follow them for several miles. This would make the group so frightened that they quickly brought their mopeds to a stop, and then dived into a nearby ditch in order to take cover. Another sighting in Finland had multiple witnesses. Almost at the same moment, just as the strange object was about to meet their location, it changed location at the very last moment and disappeared into the distance. This seemingly trivial detail is one that shows up in many other UFO accounts of a similar nature. Is this a detail that shows the occupants are merely toying with such witnesses? Following the disappearance of the strange craft, the group jumped back on their mopeds and returned to their respective houses, informing all who would listen of what they had seen almost as soon as they arrived.
No electrical interference.
Vasala would recall that the object, apart from when it disappeared, moved particularly slowly and was approximately 15 feet in width. He would further recall that the craft would change color several times, going through all the colors of the rainbow. Precise movements suggesting intelligent control.
It must be a gay
What's more, Maddie's mother would venture outside with binoculars in order to see the object for herself. Although it was now a lot higher than when the two boys had witnessed
Rainbow
it, she
UFO.
could clearly see the anomaly in the sky. She would particularly recall how the object appeared to move on the spot. This last detail perhaps suggests that the object was turning on its own axis. All of the witnesses would further recall how the movements of the object were always precise. Because of this, they all believed that the object was intelligently guided, and not something just caught in the wind. What's more, when it did move, they would recall how it appeared that lightning shot out of the underneath of it. What is perhaps also interesting, especially with this last detail in mind, is that there is a significant network of power lines along the same route the object moved. Might this object have been absorbing some of this power? Might this be why, like the sighting of the Tolossas, the power outages often accompany such sightings? Is there an advanced intelligence behind these strange craft? Several of the witnesses would conduct sketches of the object. And what's more, they would do so on their own and away from each other. All of them were remarkably similar to each other, suggesting that not only were the two young men who first witnessed the object likely telling the truth, but so were the parents who witnessed the object after them, albeit from a distance. What's more, when investigators would speak to other residents of the area, they would learn, much like the other cases we have examined, that several other sightings around the same time, with very similar .AR details had also been reported. The Kangaskila-Kinula incident, Finland, February 1971. Only weeks earlier, on the afternoon of February 5th at around 3 p.m., in Kangaskila Kinula in Finland, yet another very similar incident would unfold involving a low-altitude UFO near Woodland, no less. The account would appear in Flying Saucer Review courtesy of Tapani Kunin Gas. The witnesses, P. Alaranta and E. J. Sneck, were working in the woodlands of the area when they noticed a bizarre metallic object shaped like two saucers put together, which appeared to be descending in their direction. They would estimate the craft was around 15 feet across and was approximately 50 feet away. Even more bizarre, as the two woodland workers watched from their location, a small being emerged from the object. They would estimate it was around 3 feet tall and appeared to glide as it moved as if it was on a conveyor belt. They could also see that the entity was dressed in a green garment from its feet to its head, upon which was a helmet with a circular faceplate. Was there a wave of UFO sightings in Scandinavia in the early 1970s? Suddenly, the two witnesses realized that the strange being was moving in their direction. They also noticed several more entities looking out of the craft at the scene below. Alaranta would approach the entity, still with his saw in his hand. Then, the being appeared to rise into the air. Instinctively, Alaranta would reach for its boot. However, as soon as he wrapped his grip around it, he felt a burning sensation travel down his arm. He would later recall that it felt like hot iron, and after regaining his senses, he let go immediately. The strange creature headed straight for the craft, which then took off straight upwards. Intriguingly, and certainly, a detail shared with our other cases, the witnesses would find indentions on the ground. A connection to the famous Delphos incident?
Oh no.
Perhaps it is also worth mentioning that the incidents we have examined here occurred only 6 months to a year before one of the most famous landing cases that left behind evidence of its landing, in Delphos, Kansas in November 1971, a case that we have examined previously.
Indeed.
Whether there is a connection or not is open to debate. And most likely, based on what we know right now, an argument can be made for and against. It is certainly interesting that such a case would happen in the United States, such a short time after so many cases were happening in the Scandinavian reaches of Europe. What's more, the landing incident in Delphos is largely regarded as one of the most convincing and credible encounters on record.
I don't know about that.
Not least because of the credibility of the witnesses and the physical evidence left behind at the scene, apparent evidence of a landing incident, no less. While there had certainly been plenty of alleged landing incidents on record previously, why did so many incidents begin to take place in the opening months of the 1970s? Might these sightings have been a precursor to the wave of sightings that would saturate the planet during 1973? And if so, what were they themselves leading towards? Other discrete and similar sightings also appear in the United States. If we return to the idea of a discrete UFO presence in 1970 and 1971, it also appears that this was the general feel of the public at large. That UFO sightings were, generally speaking, decreasing. However, as some researchers at the time and many since have highlighted, this appeared not to be the case. And while sightings in the United States might have decreased a little during this period, there are still several others that involve red-yellow glowing objects, which most often land or at the very least hover at a particularly low altitude. Why do many UFO sightings occur near water? For example, in Grand Island in New England, Massachusetts, a husband and wife would notice strange car taillights moving across the road in front of their vehicle. Something about the lights told the married couple that they were not taillights and were, in fact, something strange and extraordinary. The couple watched the lights for several moments before they disappeared from their sight. Around the same time as the Grand Island sighting, on the other side of the United States, another incident involving a strange red light would take place. The Red Ball case, Furnace Creek, California.
Yeah, do you want to pause it there?
Although the date is uncertain apart from the...
So like what we were inferring there, that the sightings had something to do with the film?
Close Encounter.
No, just pointing out that in the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, they had UFOs on the road, and
yeah,
There's some scenes of the cars seeing it. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
right.
he
It
may
was,
have. He
it
may
was
have heard this case and used it in the movie. Is what I'm saying.
Oh, I get you. No, it's not impossible, is it?
No.
But that case where the police were chasing it in that particular film, that was from an incident in the States, wasn't it? Where they chased an object for, I think it was 84 miles and covered 3 different states in the process. Damn it, I can't remember the name of that UFO incident now, but that happened, I think, in the 60s, and they used that in the film. There's one of the police cars actually crashed, didn't it? It's quite funny, and that was based on a real incident. I just can't remember what the incident was called now off the top of my head. But we have covered it in a previous live anyway.
Yeah.
And we're getting towards the end of this now.
Don't ask me to remember, because I can't remember that either. Maybe Charles can. Has he gone off?
I can remember the incident, but I can't remember what it's called. I've seen it on Google.
You find out on Google, okay.
From that it took place at some point in 1970 or early 1971, 2 hotel workers were returning home following their shift in Furnace Creek in California. It was around 2:30 a.m., and the road upon which they walked was largely abandoned. It was as they were making their way down the highway, they noticed a cactus-shaped object to the left of the road. Almost as soon as they noticed the strange object, they also noticed a green flash. Then another. As the pair continued to watch events unfold, they suddenly noticed a red ball of light suddenly appear behind them. This sudden appearance sent a jolt of panic through the men, causing them to run. They would continue to do so until they reached the house they shared, slamming the door on the strange glowing object as they did so. Similar sightings are on record on the other side of the Atlantic in the United States. The pair would remain at the window and watch the already bizarre events turn even stranger. The strange glowing red ball remained outside their property for several moments. Then, however, it would move across the road near the mountains of the region. It then appeared to create a vortex, even pulling in nearby rocks from the terrain around it as they clashed and clattered in the air. Then, the red ball would disappear. At the same time, the rocks and debris caught in this strange vortex would suddenly crash to the ground. Even more bizarrely, the red ball would appear again several moments later above the mountain itself. So shaken were the 2 men by the events home, both would apparently quit their jobs at the hotel the following day and return to their respective homes. Those who study history. We touched on the idea of a connection, as bizarre as it might seem, to some of the fruits of the world, and the fact that the Anten landing took place right in the middle of several old fruit trees. Indeed, given the estimated size of the craft that landed that night in the summer of 1970, the landing spot was a very purposeful destination given how tight the fit appeared to be. As we will recall, no damage was done to any of the trees on the land in question. Furthermore, with similar landing incidents, there appears to be a persistent reconnaissance feel to these strange encounters. It is perhaps interesting to note that none of the incidents we have examined here appear to feature any details of alien abduction. However, as the 1970s and the decades that followed would show, such cases of alien abduction would explode. Were these seemingly ambiguous sightings, as we have examined here, research missions on the abductors' part before such projects went ahead? Might they also have a connection to the equally bizarre cattle mutilations that would unfold, predominantly across the United States and North America, but also throughout South America and in parts of Europe? Perhaps as many who see the benefit of studying history attest, that through doing so, we can apply that wisdom to the present, and more importantly, events upcoming in our immediate collective futures. And in this case, perhaps studying such strange incidents of the past will help unlock the encounters, as increasingly more dramatic and harrowing as they were, that would follow them. The same elements of the UFO sighting environment. Before we leave our case study for another week, we would be irresponsible to not, once again, highlight the connection of these sightings to several seemingly key elements of the environment that they often unfold in. For example, it is hard to ignore the presence of water in many of the cases we have examined here. We won't go over the reasons why water is so important.
But
However,
if it's full of
many
water,
believe they share connections to alien bases, or the need on the respective occupants' parts to make use of or even extract it for their own ends. The more UFO accounts we examine, the more this point continues to surface. Why are UFOs visiting our planet? Furthermore, many of the regions are also surrounded by woodland and mountainous terrain. Like water, some researchers suggest either the presence of alien bases within these mountains, or the formation of strange portals that act as gateways over or near them. We might remember that many ancient writings, especially from the Bible, that appear to be accounts of extraterrestrial interaction often take place near such mountains.
Nonsense.
Yeah, just subject to.
And lastly, while perhaps not as predominantly as the first details we have mentioned, the presence of a power supply of some kind, even if it is the presence of power cables as in our case above. Is this an important factor, perhaps in the same way water might be? We should also mention that such power lines crisscross most modern cities, so this is increasingly harder to determine. Or perhaps that is why it appears that
Like
UFO
80%
sightings
of the
are
world is
seemingly
water.
increasing across the planet. Might
So
it
it's
even
course
be,
it's
as
gonna
we examined when we looked at the psychic internet
Yeah, of
theory,
course UFO
that
is
these
gonna be near
conditions
water.
provide the correct circumstances for such craft to manifest? Of course, what manifest might actually mean is itself open to debate. Another puzzle piece on the table of the big picture. As always in the closing paragraphs of our case study articles, we should ask what to make of the main case we have examined near Lake Anten, and more importantly, if the other incidents that occurred in the same Scandinavian region at around the same share a connection. And if so, how do these incidents fit into the wider UFO and alien question, and the onslaught of sightings that are on record?
Well, we've got to wrap up soon, guys.
That something truly out of the ordinary was unfolding over the region in question is surely without a doubt.
Yeah.
As always, it is the
just
who
his
and why
opinion
that
at the
lurk in the
moment.
background of these accounts.
Yeah, exactly.
And as we have asked as we have gone along here on several occasions, just what might the purpose have been of these landing incidents? Why would these apparent
More Q's
objects
than
from
A's.
elsewhere in the universe land for such a brief time, and then take off again? Might it be, as all UFO researchers need to ask in such cases, that these crafts are not of alien origin, but are instead top-secret military aircraft? And if that is the case, the same question applies. What is the purpose of such landings?
So, yeah. That's the question
Yeah, okay.
we're still asking today.
Just to make a point there with the water aspect of UFOs. Now, of course, you're quite right. 70% of the Earth is covered with water, but that you're missing the whole point here. You see, the vast majority of people who live on this planet don't live in the sea, do they?
In the what?
Because we can't. We don't live in the sea, do we? We live on land. Yeah. So over 50% of UFO reports are seen on coastlines, Paul. Over 50%. Now, if you look at every coastline in the world, there's nowhere near as many people living on the coastline as there is inland. So yes, for over 50% to be seen near water is significant.
Yeah, but there's lakes and rivers
100%.
as well.
Yes, lakes as well.
And
there's
rivers.
Definitely something to that.
That's what I'm saying. There's a good chance the UFO is going to be near water. That's what I'm saying. You can't use
Yes, but there's also more of a chance that it's not going to be near water because the bulk of the populace lives inland.
Yeah, not too sure on that.
That's quite a simple equation, that, Paul. It doesn't take much working out at all. I mean, can you see the sea from where you are, Paul?
No, not where I can, but
No,
there's lots of
thank you.
rivers and lakes.
No,
There's a lot of rivers and lakes
Charles,
around
can you
us.
see the sea from where you are?
No.
No, Charles can't either. That's what I'm saying. I can, yes, but the majority of people live in a place where they can't see water.
But he said
but
water.
Yet,
water
over 50% of reports are made near water.
I bet Charles is near a river, though, aren't you?
Oh my gosh, no. There's no river here.
Look
little
up
streams, little brooks and stuff, but not here.
Yeah, it's the sea and lakes, major lakes. That's where they're seen. Not little flaming rivers and tributaries.
I mean, there's reservoirs a distance away. I mean, it wouldn't take them long to get into them places.
Yeah. Well, that's my point, though. But anyway, we better wrap up. Do we need to do an FMI and anything there?
Well, I think that with the last one, that ended up covering half a dozen cases, didn't it?
Yeah.
But I think the first case where there was landing evidence, I'd give that a 4. I don't think that was a hoax at all.
All right.
And I think hoaxes are extremely scarce anyway. First thing you're going to look at is who's made money from it, who's doing, the lectures and everything. Yeah. None of those people were.
Yeah, it depends if they do it for free
made
or not.
money from that.
Yeah. Not many alien reports in that one either, was there? That's another thing.
No humanoid reports in that one, no.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing there, you look at Scandinavia, of course you've got Denmark at the bottom, haven't you? And then you've got on the east coast you've got Norway, and then on the west side you've got the border with Russia, haven't you, with Finland? But I noticed there was no reports there from Sweden, which is slap bang in the middle of both of them. I thought that was a bit odd. Unless there were cases, of course, and they just didn't come to light.
Yes, so we better wind down now.
Yeah, and whoever's listening, thank you. Thanks for tuning in.
All right. We may have got a few new visitors from Twits.
So. That was good, Robert.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, it went okay tonight. There was no tech issues. I was really worried that my internet was going to go down.
Yeah, they've been in black this time. Okay, we're going to end it. There was a wee bit of CPU peaks, though.
Okay.
It didn't stop us much.
Good night, all.
See you, Robert.
Okay, thank you, Charles.
That'll be your bedtime now, Charles.
12. Really nice.
Get some sleep before your bird wakes up as you make your life hell.
We've done a lot this week, though, haven't we?
Yeah. Whether I can do a midweek next week, I don't know. I'm gradually getting more and more tired.
Okay, I'm going now, guys. Right, see you soon.
Okay, thanks, Charles. See you later.
Bye.
Hey, you got our top on today. We should have displayed it at the end. Your hoodie. What's happened to your video? It's gone. CPU peaking, I think. Yeah, you got the Out There channel hoodie on. We didn't even bring you up on full screen to show. For once, you got it on. Oh, we'll show it at the end here. Just as we switch off, though. After the credits. There we go full time to show. Rob's actually got the hoodie on. I forgot to say, I only just noticed it.
Yeah, I forgot to mention it as well.
Oh well, we got the end here, credits.
Could have been flaming dog hair, but there we go.
No, you shouldn't be
I'll take
dogs.
it off now for the weekend. I'll put it on for next Sunday. Well, next Sunday is slightly in doubt for me, but I'll let you know anyway.
Here we go. Rob's got the hoodie on from the Out There channel. Eventually we'll get another one to him. If we can get any donations to this channel ever. Without Super Chat and all the other regulars that drop by, it's really hard, isn't it? But we might be able to get there once we get the Twitch thing going properly. There's too much to research. Anyway, we'll catch you later, guys. I'm just going to end it now.
Okay. Good night, all.
Where's the tick box?